Podspective, an initiative by Daayitwa Abhiyan encompassing of Daayitwa, Governance Lab, Nepal Leadership Academy, and Nepal Rising. This podcast series delves into values carried by these organizations and discusses themes of governance, leadership, and innovation with the aim to promote sustainable economic development of Nepal and evidence-based policy making.
नमस्कार, यहाँहरू सबैलाई फेरि म यो पर्सपेक्टिभ बाई दायित्व अभियानमा स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छौँ। यो हाम्रो 5औं एपिसोड हो। अहिले देशमा यो अर्थतन्त्रलाई सुदृढ गर्नुपर्ने अत्यावश्यकता छ। रोजगारीदेखि लिएर विभिन्न सूचकहरू हेर्ने हो भने पनि देशलाई अत्यन्त गाह्रो छ। त्यो अवस्थामा भर्खरै एउटा बजेट पनि आयो हैन, र अब यो कसरी अगाडि बढ्ने भन्ने क्रममा चाहिँ धेरै जसो हामीहरूले कृषि क्षेत्र, उद्यमशीलता हैन यस्ता कुराहरू गरिरहेका छौँ। मलाई एकदमै खुसी के लागेको छ भने आज हामीहरूसँग एउटा यस्तो गेस्ट हुनुहुन्छ जसले चाहिँ यही कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ आफ्नो जीवनमा अनेकन सङ्घर्ष र रचनात्मक सङ्घर्षहरूबाट उहाँले आफ्नो जीवनमा उतार्नु भएको छ। म हार्दिक स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु निम्बसका म्यानेजिङ डाइरेक्टर आनन्द बगारियाज्यूलाई। स्वागत छ हजुरलाई। ओके, सो मैले यहाँको यो ब्याकग्राउन्ड हैन अन्तिम 3 दशक सायद 1995 देखि अहिलेसम्म यहाँ अलि एक्टिभली यो बिजनेस सेक्टरमा लाग्नु भएको हैन मलाई। अनि त्यो हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ देयर सो मेनी नगेट्स अफ विजडम जुन हामीहरूले आज पुल आउट गर्न चाहन्छौँ। सुरु चाहिँ म कहाँबाट गर्न चाहन्थेँ भने नि आनन्दजी, निम्बसलाई हेर्दाखेरि हैन र निम्बसको नेतृत्वमा यहाँलाई हेर्दाखेरि हामीहरूले एकदम एउटा सफल संस्था जसले एकदमै ठुलो हिसाबले नयाँ कामहरू गरिरहेछ त्यो देख्छौँ। ठुलो बिल्डिङ देख्छौँ होला हैन, यहाँको त्यो प्रोडक्ट्सहरूलाई बजारमा देख्छौँ होला। तर हामीहरूले त्यो पहिलो दशकको अथवा त्यो पहिलो दशकमा पनि त्यो पहिलो 4-5 वर्षको स्ट्रगललाई चाहिँ याद गर्दैनौँ कि। अनि उद्यमशीलताको एउटा महत्त्वपूर्ण महत्त्वपूर्ण कहानी त्यहाँ छ नि त। सो इफ यु क्यान टेक अस टु the first several years, अनि एन्ड त्यसमा पनि मोर पार्टिकुलरली अराउन्ड हाउ यु भन्छ नि फेल्ड फरवर्ड फास्ट कि अनि कहाँ चाहिँ चुक्नुभयो होइन, के कुराहरू त्यसबाट सिक्नुभयो, त्यो छोटो त्यो हामीलाई पृष्ठभूमि दिइदिनुहोस् न।
स्ट्रगलको कुरा गर्नुहुन्छ भने स्ट्रगल इज स्टिल अन हैन। आई मिन द म्याग्निट्युड हेज चेन्ज्ड। earlier we used to struggle by the hour, now we struggle by the month. That's the difference, but the struggle is still on. Back in 1995, I mean when I graduated, my first thing was ki Jagir Khanna. So I wanted to be the owner of my time.
तपाईको academic background चाहिँ engineering हो?
Yes.
है? Okay.
Yes. And I had the option of going for an MBA and either had I continued that, I would have been in the US, probably doing a job right now. But there's this word, junoon bhaन्छौँ क्या. So that is something which I just wanted to be the owner of my time, and I did not want to take up something which was very 9 to 5. And I felt that creativity gets stifled on a very structured pattern. So मैले चाहिँ after engineering I said, okay, let me come back to Nepal and see what I can do here. And त्यसमा चाहिँ विभिन्न प्रयासहरू गरियो. I mean right from starting a ballpoint manufacturing unit to trading into some FMCG products, importing from India, distributing in Nepal.
Ballpoint pen, the Bakerman biscuit.
Bakerman biscuit. That was part of, we did Nutrien confectionery and many other things. But somewhere down the line, coming from an engineering background and the family background that I had, the way I had seen my dad into manufacturing, I felt we were not creating enough value addition. And, back then it was just about earning enough pocket money to survive on your own. That's it. But then,
त्यो बिजनेसले राम्रै गरिरहेको थियो अथवा
ठिकै गरिरहेको थियो? त्यो मेरो आफ्नो रिक्वायरमेन्टको हिसाबले राम्रै गरिरहेको थियो भन्नु पर्यो।
पकेट मनी
भन्दा बढी नै आइरहेको थियो होइन। बट when you think about it now, then yes, a lot of now when you think of it, yes, it had very limited scope, very limited things that, and there was. It was a very Me Too kind of stuff. Not the ballpoint pen unit, but the distribution business was a very Me Too thing. Buying from somebody, selling it to somebody, giving credit and trying to collect the money back. As simple as that. You know, आज पनि छ त्यो business in a. I mean, everybody is doing it, right? So. What is it that would differentiate me? भन्ने कुरा पक्कै पनि I don't remember consciously thinking that way back then. But now when I look into it on hindsight, that must have bothered me and wanted to do something more and more technical. And you know, as luck would have it, then the animal nutrition business happened. Stumbled into something which was very unplanned, and in my pursuit to find some niche for myself, I've always been a person who's looked for niche. I've always been somebody who keeps looking for gaps. And I find my fit in those gaps, and I needed a gap which was sizable.
What was the gap you identified?
What we identified back then is, in the process of attending seminars and exhibitions and various things, what we identified, when I say we, I like to say we is because, me and my dad became entrepreneurs at the same time. So we together became entrepreneurs. So,
उहाँ चाहिँ manufacturing तिर.
Yes, he used to run this company called Star Beer back then.
Yes.
So, he used to run it. But when I came back, not a very conscious decision, but it so happened that we both enjoyed this new hat of being an entrepreneur. I wanted it for my independence, and for him, it was probably more of a graduation process, right? So, त्यो बेला, what we figured is that the animal nutrition business, specifically poultry, जसलाई कि यसो आज पनि कुरा गर्दाखेरि a lot of people might say, कुखुरा त पाल्दो रहेछ नि, हैन, or feed बनाउँदो रहेछ. I mean, or they colloquially chicken feed is used as something like very non-technical. This is like how you say it's not rocket science, you say this is chicken feed, So, but it is not. What we discovered is chicken feed is not chicken feed. I mean, there's a whole lot. It's a huge business. Back then we realized it's a huge business. Back then, Pani, if I'm not mistaken, we were, my estimate in 2002, 2003 was that poultry business in Nepal is almost about 1,500 crore business. And it is very disorganized and it is very technical. So this was the finding on which we started working. We realized that given the skill set my dad had on the management side of it, there is a possibility of organizing this business. Since it is a large business, it could be corporate, it could be made into a corporate business as well. And third, jokingly, I always talk to my friends saying, it's easier to feed the humans than to feed the animals, because all humans care about is taste. And taste comes from masala and all that stuff. It doesn't come from food, right? But for animals, they have to perform. When I say a bird, let's say a broiler chicken, it has to grow to a certain size, eating so much of nutrition and providing that many sellable kgs of meat, right? So the performance angle doesn't come along when we sell food to humans. So त्यो भएको हुनाले, we realize this combination, if we can put these three things in one basket and convert this into a well-managed business, that is where...
Three things भनेको चाहिँ?
Nutrition. That is technicals. Second was management, because it's a huge business. Back then, 2003, 4, 20 years ahead from now, if it was a 15 crore industry, 1500 crore industry, it was a sizable industry. When our budget was probably 6 crore or 7 crore, right? And, and third was management. So this was a very scattered backyard, bits and pieces ma bhairako businesses, right? So we said, okay, so just to give you an example, when we got into the business, one of the largest feed milling companies, few feed milling companies, they were doing about 30 tons of feed per day. Today, we do about 300 plus tons of feed per day. sometimes more than 400, 450, but our year average would be about 300. And there are lots of companies which do 100 plus. So the whole, dimension of the whole paradigm changed, right? So so that was the finding, and that's when we started getting in. And the more we went in, the more things we realized. And today also we try and identify areas where improvements and
yes. यो तपाईको यो कहानीमा सुरुवाती फेजमा चाहिँ यहाँले गर्नु भएको कामबाट जस्तो किसिमको आर्थिक लाभको अपेक्षा गर्नु भएको थियो त्यो भएन, जस्तो किसिमको अलिकति यो नवप्रवर्तन, नयाँ कुरा, इनोभेसन, टेक्नोलोजीको कुरा त्यो पनि थिएन हैन। अनि त्यो हिसाबले तपाईँ अगाडि बढ्नुभयो। तर तपाईँ जुन सेक्टरमा अगाडि बढ्नुभयो यहाँले पनि थोरै इन्डिकेट त गर्नुभयो, पोल्ट्री फिड भनेको फिड मात्रै होइन जसरी बुझ्छन् हैन। त द्याट सेड एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टर हैन, यो कृषि क्षेत्र बृहत रूपबाट हेर्ने हो भने सामान्यतया चाहे त्यो एउटा गाउँ होस् वा सहर होस्, बुझाइ भनेको चाहिँ यो कृषि हो। अहिले गर्ने भनेको त एआई हो, ब्लकचेन हो, अथवा विदेशमा जाने हो हैन, यस्तो खालको छ नि त। सो देयर इज दिस न्यारेटिभ अराउन्ड एग्री सेक्टर हैन। तपाईँ चाहिँ यो सेक्टरमा जाँदाखेरि कसरी सोच्नुभयो अनि अहिलेको यो जुन यो न्यारेटिभ बन्न गएको छ नि हैन यो सेक्टरलाई हेर्ने, त्यसलाई चेन्ज गर्नलाई के गर्नुपर्छ होला?
See, I mean, अगर if you ask me, as I said, मलाई चाहिँ I didn't want to take up a job. First criteria was that. And second, I wanted to do something of my own because I wanted to be the owner of my time. Right. So, in spite of being an engineering, coming from an engineering background, it was not important for me what I do. But what was important was that I do something on my own where I have the freedom. That was the initial starting point, right? So it was not about whether I'm doing FMCG or if I'm doing agriculture or I'm doing feed. Yeah, it didn't matter. But yes, of course, you need to, over a period of time, I mean, I had the luxury of, experimenting in the initial few years. But then...
but you persisted in your sector, ma. You could have left. You could have gone somewhere else.
Yeah, but then, that was the turning point, right? When you realize that the sector is big, when you realize that the sector is technically demanding, and when you also realize that because it is big, it also requires management skills.
Yeah.
And that is a combination which is what we started working on. Right? So it could have been some other sector as well. I mean, it was just by fluke that we got into agri sector. I mean, we did not come from agri background. Neither my dad nor me came from an agri background. But we were, determined to do something with our skill set. Right. So, and as you started with, आज जुन size को business छ, त्यो size को business कल्पना पनि गरिया थिएन. I mean, the idea was, typically pocket money पछि let's create a stable business and then maybe that's it. I mean, but sometimes things happen too fast and good as well, right? Oh. So that is what happened with that.
Yeah. No, I think this is really nice. This is यो सुरुवात चाहिँ राम्रो भयो जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई, किनभने हामीहरूले देशमा भएको सम्भावनाहरूलाई कतिचोटि अगाडि हुँदै देख्दैनौँ नि हैन। अनि तपाईँले त्यतिखेर के देख्नु भने यो त ठुलो सेक्टर पो रहेछ, यहाँ त टन्नै पैसा पनि छ, बिकज देयर इज अ बिग ग्लेयरिङ ग्याप। अनि त्यो ग्याप भनेको त्यो अलिक डिसअर्गनाइजेसनमा म्यानेजमेन्ट अझैसम्म राम्रो गर्न सकियो भने सायद तपाईँको लागि भनेर चाहिँ बिकज युआर अल्सो एन इन्जिनियर, त्यो साइन्स, त्यो टेक्नोलोजी, त्यो इनोभेसन साइड अफ थिङ्स वाज अल्सो perhaps very attractive.
So हामी भन्छौँ नि कि it's not just your education but your surroundings make you what you become eventually, right? So probably the engineering part of it, my dad's involvement in a blue chip company back then, Star Beer-ma bhayeko hunale, and probably the conversations we had at the dining table probably were the points which came together to...
Yeah.
But what was, on hindsight, what was probably most important was the zeal to create something. For whatever reasons, right? I mean, it was for a very selfish reason कि मलाई pocket money, I mean, I remember very clearly, कम से कम financially independent हूँ ताकि साथीहरूसँग बाहिर जाँदाखेरि बुवासँग पैसा माग्नु नपरोस्, होइन? This was a starting point. So when you think about it like that, there's a zeal. You want to cross that barrier, right? And then the barriers keep changing, right? And, so the initial barrier ma jun त्यो zeal थियो, that zeal is, I mean, in my case and for I think for almost everybody, that zeal is the point when you start looking for things.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs I see come with the idea that I'm an automotive engineer, so I need to do something in automobile. Already the boundaries are set, right? You kind of confine yourself to being within the automotive sphere. I was lucky not to have those boundaries. I was, all I cared about is how do I become financially independent. I know. So it could, fortunately today I can say I got into this sector, but had it been automobile, I could have been in automotive.
Right. त्यो अहिले डिस्क्राइब गर्नुको फिचर्सहरू त अरू अर्को सेक्टरमा पनि हुनसक्थ्यो. मलाई चाहिँ यो किन पनि मैले पर्सनली रिलेट गर्छु भने आई डोन्ट नो इफ यु न्यू, तर म एउटा इन्जिनियर, इलेक्ट्रिकल इन्जिनियर थिएँ. अहिले अब विकासको क्षेत्रमा छु होइन. सो इभेन्चुली चाहेको भनेको त अब एउटा नेपाल एउटा उद्यमशील देश होस्, राम्रो होस्, देशको प्रगति होस् भन्ने चाहेको. सो आफ्नो मनले जे खान्छ त्यो बाटोमा चाहिँ जान सकिन्छ. एउटै कुरामा स्टक भइरहनु पनि पर्दैन. तर त्यसको कोर एलिमेन्ट चाहिँ प्रयोग गर्न सकिन्छ. द्याट सेड आनन्दजी, हामीलाई के कुरा पनि बुझ्न मन थियो भने नि यो यात्रामा एकदमै अँध्यारो गाह्रो र पुग्यो मलाई भन्ने खालको दिनहरू महिनाहरू पनि त आयो होला नि.
थुप्रै अहिले पनि आउँछन्. I mean, it's not that
take us to one or two of them होइन. किनभने यो एन्टरप्रेन्योरशिपको वरिपरि चाहिँ एउटा कस्तो छ कि यो त माथि मात्रै भन्ने एउटा सोच छ नि युवा समुदायमा. Take us to a moment where you just felt like giving up. यो त पुग्यो मलाई.
And a lot of times, I mean, I can tell you, just before we got into the animal nutrition business, we came across this company called Novo Nordisk, and a Danish company, one of the largest enzyme companies, who, through their agent in India, convinced us to get into sale of enzymes into Nepal. And back then I was doing FNCCI distribution and I had no idea of enzymes, but I call it a pleasant mistake, but त्यो item करीब धेरैको हैन, I think 5,000 kilo, which was worth about 16 or 17 lakh rupees, 98 or 99 तिरको कुरा हो. And the whole thing was that the 16 lakh rupiah ko item will sell for 24 lakhs. And I had to share with the guy in India about on a ratio of 60-40 or something of that. So it sounded too good to be true, but then also sounded like मेरै लागि tailor-made आया जस्तो छ भने जस्तो पनि लाग्ने होइन. So we got into it, and when we got into it, we realized कि 5,000 किलो त नेपालमा वार्षिक पनि बिक्दैन त्यो आइटम back then होइन. So
मार्केट असेसमेन्ट मिलाएर रहन्छ.
There was no market assessment. I mean, these were all gut feel decision and also trust on the other person, because he's been doing that business in India for a long time. So,
उसको त बेच्नु पनि छ.
So त्यो म गएपछि 2-3 months down the line felt like this is like a major setback.
यो चितवनमा तपाईँले बेच्नु खोज्नु भएको थियो यसलाई चाहिँ है. Right.
Chitwan was the largest poultry belt back then, and so we tried to sell that, and that felt like त्यो सुरु गर्न साथै the downfall is there. Right. But then that zeal, again I say that zeal keeps you alive, and zeal tries to look for other alternatives within that. So actually what we are doing today is an outcome of that mistake. That gave us insight into the poultry sector. We met everybody and anybody possible in Nepal, India, to get that material off our shoulders. And that's when we understood the intricacy of this business.
Right.
And the size of the business.
Right.
Over here, I must mention, there was this company in India. There is this company, which is probably one of the largest poultry companies in India now, called Suguna. So we had bumped into Mr. Saundarajan at that back in 2000. Met this gentleman, and त्यो बेला Indo-Nepal treaty has just been signed. 1995 ki 96 ma Indo-Nepal treaty had been signed, and it gave us this platform where anything manufactured in Nepal could be exported to India and will be treated as good as manufactured in India.
In India.
So the same duty structure, same everything.
Right.
So त्यो भएको हुनाले and my dad had been instrumental in negotiating that treaty on behalf of the private sector. So your knowledge and this timing came together, and I made a pitch to that gentleman saying, why don't we produce something called feed supplements from Nepal to India?
Right.
And that was the starting point. So, one mistake on the enzyme led to meeting this guy and, without any experience, talking about a possibility, and which was probably a credible pitch that I must have made.
Yes. भनेपछि तपाईँको त्यो जिल त छँदैछ तर तपाईँले छोड्नु भएन त्यो जिलले गर्दा तपाईँले त्यो बाटो चाहिँ छोड्नु भएन
चोइसै थिएन नि
चोइसै थिएन
हैन See, when an entrepreneur gets into taking that risk, failure is not an option.
Is not an option.
Not an option. I mean, people who get in thinking that yahasamma janchu bhayena bhane farkinchu, not an entrepreneur. Failure is
So
not.
who is an entrepreneur?
Alikati, how I describe is, first of all, I would like to differentiate between a businessman and an entrepreneur. Businessman is nothing but a manager to his business. Right? An entrepreneur is one who creates something. Could be a concept, could be a service, could be an idea, could be anything. And he executes it. So he
or she has.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of books which are published saying 10,000 ideas which could make you a millionaire kind of stories, right? But then the guy is still selling
bestsellers.
Yeah, and he sells a book. I mean, that's his idea, right? He's executed that book. He's not executed the 10,000 ideas there. So same thing here. Idea, dime a dozen, as you said, and plenty. You and me can sit down all day, keep chatting. There'll be hundreds of ideas that we could generate. But then what do you feel for and what you execute? That makes an entrepreneur.
Right.
And, entrepreneur doesn't think unidirection. He has to think 360. You're moving in one direction, but you're looking at the remaining 359 to see which is a better opportunity. So even in that particular idea, you are, okay, that's a starting point, but you could turn around. Like we started with feed supplement. We don't do feed supplement anymore.
Right.
We got into feed milling.
त्यो फर्स्ट बोलिङ पिन चाहिँ हो त त्यसपछि के गर्ने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ you want to win the game.
Yeah. And adaptation, Entrepreneur has to be very adaptive. He has to change as per the tide. You cannot ride the same tide again and again, day in, day out. So the adaptability, the agility that you have probably makes you an entrepreneur. So, there's a businessman and there's an entrepreneur.
So
they're not the same.
Yeah, an entrepreneur creates, executes, and adapts.
Yeah, takes the risks. Right?
Takes the risks. Yeah. So तपाईको यो निम्बसको यात्रामा के निम्बस भन्ने नाम कहाँबाट सोच्नु भयो कसैले सोधेको छैन तपाईलाई
A lot of people have asked me, and
it's an interesting name.
It's an interesting name, but it came from when I was doing my engineering in India. Back then, there was this company called Nimbus Marketing, which was doing nothing but more of an advertising company, but was doing a lot of creative ads. And that company kind of impressed me. Back to Nepal, we were doing the FMCG business, and I had this friend who joined me in this business, and he said, "No le naam rakhau na ta." For some reason, he said, "No le rakhau," and I immediately said, "Nimbus Marketing rakhau," and that's how we started.
Good. Nimbus र इनोभेसन यो पर्यायवाची जस्तो हुन गएको छ कि अहिले हामीले झट्टै हेर्दाखेरि एकदम हेर्दाखेरि सिम्पल चुनौती वा सिम्पल अवसर तर रियलाइज गर्न अघि यहाँले भन्नुभयो नि त्यो नयाँ कुरा सोच्न सके होला तर एक्जिक्युट गर्नु गाह्रो कुरा हो. So tell us about some of the disruptive innovations. Because you at heart तपाईँ त इनोभेटर नै हो तपाईलाई त न त भने बोरिङ लाग्न थाल्छ होला हैन आफ्नै बिजनेस पनि. So tell us about तपाईको यसो झट्टै सोच्दाखेरि अब यो अन्तिम 2 दशकमा स्पेशली what are one or two of those disruptive innovations that Nimbus embraced?
So first, as I said, was the feed supplement export
Right.
to India, where we saw that there was a new treaty that has come into effect between the two countries, and there was a arbitrage between doing business in India and business in Nepal.
Yeah.
So that was the starting point there.
And that's so exciting. मलाई त्यो कस्तो खुसी लाग्ने कुरा के हो भने this was like late 90s हैन
Yeah, mid-90s, 95, 96 तिर this treaty was signed.
96 तिर अब तपाईले जब नेपाल चाहिँ के अरे इम्पोर्ट धेरै भयो भनेर हैन त्यो ठाउँमा छ यु आर एक्सपोर्टिङ अ प्रोडक्ट लेभरेजिङ ए पोलिसी इन्भाइरोमेन्ट द्याट एक्जिस्ट्स
Yes.
त्यो सोचै त्यहाँसम्म पुग्दैन नि
So that was also a major confidence builder for me.
Right.
Because till 1999, I started working in 95, I think, 95, 96. And मैले highest turnover, top line देखेको 3 crore rupees थियो त्यो बेलासम्म, 99 सम्म
वर्षको
annual turnover. Come 2000, with this little
10 वर्षमा 3 करोडसम्म पुग्नु भयो तपाईँ 95 देखि
95 देखि 2000, 99 सम्म. So in those 4 years,
5 वर्षमा.
average turnover per year was 3 crore rupees.
3 crore.
And then came a time, then 2000, I did a turnover of 60 crore rupees. A
Goodness.
small idea, executed well, gave us that kind of growth. So त्यहाँबाट एउटा के कन्फिडेन्स बढ्यो भने पहिला पहिला कस्तो हुन्थ्यो भने 60 crores 100 crores को टर्नओभर वाज समथिङ भेरी फेरी टेल काइन्ड अफ
हो नि।
अर्काको सुन्या मात्रै हुन्थ्यो
I'm getting goosebumps.
अर्काको कन्ट्रीमा इन्डियामा फलानाले गर्छ नेपालमा 2-4 जना छन् दे डु द काइन्ड अफ टर्नओभर and we used to feel कि होइन होला I mean sometimes these are all mysteries, unsolved mysteries kind of thing, but आफैले गरेपछि oh this is reality जस्तो feel भयो and then the के feel भयो भने 60 हुन सक्छ भने मैले 200 पनि सुनेको थिएँ त अर्कोको यो पनि हुन सक्छ होला for me 3 to 60 was the biggest leap.
Catalytic, eh?
Yeah, in the sense that मेरो confidence, not on the books को कुरा ठिक छ, I may have taken bigger leaps in those many years, but मेरो it was not a leap of revenue, it was a leap of confidence.
Yeah.
Leap of faith भन्छौँ नि हामी. So it was more of a leap of faith, and it and today that still stays with me,
Yeah.
and I still keep looking for those niches which will give me that leap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
What does your competition look like? Start हेर्दा त बाहिरबाट maybe I know you more त्यही भएर पनि होला तर or Nimbus more त Nimbusको मार्केटिङ जुन तपाईँले नाम पनि बढो गर्नुभयो मार्केटिङ राम्रो भए पनि होला. What does your competition look like?
no, competition is a strong competition now.
Yeah.
The competition has grown over the last many years. I mean, in fact, it is frustrating and disappointing at times that in the last 4-5 years we have not been able to keep our lead. We have not been able to keep our lead in the sense that top line the lead? I would think no. It has to be the innovative lead or the ideation lead or something of that sort.
Disruption.
So so we've been working on few things. Frustratingly, many are in the pipeline for the last many years, but yet many of them are yet to see the light of the day.
Can you tell us about one of them? I mean, if it's possible.
Yeah, I can talk about it. And one I'm sure you guys know about is the warehousing project that we have started, which has started generating revenue this year onwards. Very small revenues, but it's a very conceptual thing where we have created an aggregation center for grains.
That's
so
massive.
Nepalma utpadan bhako grain lai we come from this thought process that agriculture, agri-processing, and agri-logistics in between, whatever it requires, are 3 different businesses. And at Nimbus, we don't want to compete with the farmer. We want to play complementary. And
That
we
you
want
have
to,
been clear from the very beginning.
And we want to be in the logistics
Value
and
chain,
the value chain. So, but to get to the agri-processing value chain, you have to build this bridge. So we've just started that. So that's a little less unsung project, but I personally feel that we not alone, but this is what we are good at doing. We create a sector, and then people come in.
Yeah. And what is the problem that you're addressing through the warehouse?
We talk about market linkages.
Hazur.
That is where this project comes in, So the farmer comes in, deposits the grain, the banker comes in, gives him the loan against the deposit, the processor comes and buys the goods, he takes position for the next 6 months, 8 months, whatever. So in this whole, and the project itself takes care of the quality, maintains the nutrition of the grain and so on and so forth. And today if I need to buy, let's say, maize, I have the option of going there and buying it, right? I don't have to go to Hamika. We keep saying that our farm land size is very fragmented and they're very small farms. So this is a way of putting small farms into aggregating larger quantities.
And so it seems like यो farmer किसानहरूले पनि धेरै फाइदा पाउनुहुन्छ जस्तो यसबाट यो
they would get the actual realization of the market. हामी कहिलेकाहीँ भन्छौँ नि बिचौलियाले they don't let the farmer get the right price and stuff like that. See, I'm little against the word bichaulia per se, because he has a certain job to do. The aggregation job has to be done, and त्यो aggregation job ma, yes, if he becomes speculative, then there is a bicholia element to it.
Or एकदम unfair advantage ले लियो भने.
Yes, so that is where I'm talking about speculation. But if he is providing service, that service is required. And so त्यो service provide बापत एउटा fixed fee हुन पाए पनि, and this is what we are trying to trigger through this project, and plus availability, of course. And somewhere development sector को language में बोल्ने हो भने food security को पनि angle छ, but that is probably last on the agenda.
It's a byproduct. So भनेपछि किसानहरूले तुरुन्तै गएर बजारमा कतिचोटि बेच्न पनि सक्दैनन्, कतिचोटि कुहिन सक्छ, बिग्रिन सक्छ भनेपछि यो प्रोसेसबाट उनीहरूले गएर सिधै तपाईहरुलाई दिन पायो, पैसा पनि पायो, अनि यहाँहरुलाई पनि एग्रिगेट गरेर ठुलो बायर्सहरुलाई बेच्न पनि पाउनु भयो, जसले गर्दाखेरि सायद त्यो इम्पोर्ट्सहरु घट्न पनि सक्ने भयो हैन, घट्नु पर्ने हो। त्यो आफैमा पनि एउटा ठुलो रिस्क चाहिँ हो, बिकज हाम्रो देशको माइन्डसेट भनेको त अब टन्स अफ र प्रोडक्ट्सहरु इम्पोर्ट गरौँ, एउटा सेम क्वालिटी हुन्छ, इम्पोर्ट गरौँ अनि त्यसलाई प्रोसेस गरौँ भन्ने रहन्छ। सो दिस इज अ लिप। तर यो लिपमा यहाँले अघि भन्नु पनि त्यो के अरे क्वालिटी भन्ने शब्द प्रयोग गर्नुभयो नि, नाउ द्याट बिकम्स इम्पोर्टेन्ट हैन, एग्रिगेट गरेर मात्रै पनि भएन, एउटा सर्टेन क्वालिटी डेलिभर गरेपछि तपाईको बायर्सहरुले किन्छ। सो हाउ डु यु एन्स्योर दैट?
So this whole facility has that capability. It has their drying facility, it has a sieving facility, it can segregate impurities, it can standardize products. So makai pani geda ko size alag alag huncha bhane it could segregate into 2 or 3 categories and so on and so forth. So it's a good project. It's a good in the sense it's a capable project. It's only about how the government and the farm sector gets to know about it and takes advantage of it. Right. And it is going to be a journey which will take time, and it could be a little patience game, but we do realize that it has a potential.
त आनन्दजीको जिलमा डाउट गर्ने कुरै छैन। तपाईँ त झन् केही मिलेन भने त्यहाँबाट पनि यु गोना क्रिएट समथिङ नाइस आउट अफ इट। गुड। सो नाउ द्याट वी आर अलरेडी बिगिनिङ टु टक अबाउट दि अदर स्टेक होल्डर्स होइन, अब तपाईँले यो इनोभेसन गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ, त त्यो इनोभेसनमा त त्यो सप्लाई गर्ने मान्छे पनि महत्त्वपूर्ण भयो, किन्ने मान्छे पनि महत्त्वपूर्ण भयो, पोलिसी इन्भाइरोमेन्ट बनाउने मान्छे पनि महत्त्वपूर्ण भयो होइन। And this is 2023.
Yeah.
I know. This is 3 decades away from when you started.
Almost, yeah.
And almost 3 decades away from when you started. Eh? So, broadly speaking, नेपालको यो इकोसिस्टम छ नि, यो बिजनेस इकोसिस्टम त्यतिखेर जहाँ थियो र अहिले जहाँ छ, is there a difference? Have we come far? Where are we now?
I would break this into 2 parts. One is the what do you call the framework of regulations, regulatory framework, and the other is the approach, the entrepreneurial or the business sector approach. So regulatory framework ma I mean, anybody would tell you that in 30 years or 25 years, things have changed. And things have changed for good. They have become better. Things have become liberal. Of course, there will always be a gap on what I want it to be today when I compare it to other countries. But then when you compare it to 20 years ago, we have come a long way. I mean, the very fact that the business sector has grown in the last 20 years phenomenally is a testimonial to that, right? But entrepreneurial mindset, I see that the entrepreneurial mindset still needs a lot of support in terms of tuning it to current times. So if you look at this whole scenario, I again would like to look at businesses as my generation and earlier and my generation and after. Right. So my generation and earlier, मेरो जेनेरेसनमा कम से कम at least there is again an enthusiasm to adapt to new things that are happening. And the new generation already knows about a lot of new things that are happening, but then do they have the execution capability? And unfortunately, मेरो generation भन्दा पहिलाको generation still is on the hem of affairs. So there is a disconnect between the generation older than mine and the current generation.
Got it.
Right? And even when I say this, my generation or even for myself, I am also struggling to bridge the gap.
Right.
The word disruption, which has we've been seeing in the last 10, 15 years, has been appreciated, but has it been adapted in Nepal is a question mark I still have.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, नेपालमा हामी कहाँ अलिकति के छ भने कट एन्ड पेस्ट एन्टरप्रेन्योरशिपको कन्सेप्ट अलि बढी छ for various reasons.
Right.
And that cut paste entrepreneurship is not adaptive.
Yes. So यसलाई अलिकति गर्नु त हैन, लेट्स ब्रेक इट डाउन. सो एकातिर तपाईँ के भन्नु भएको छ भने जुन यो नयाँ समुदाय अथवा यो युवा समुदाय छ हैन, उनीहरूको त एक्सेस छ हैन, च्याट जिपिटीमा पनि एक्सेस छ, एउटा टाइप गर्ने बित्तिकै लिस्ट देला हैन उसले. सो जुन चाहिँ यहाँभन्दा अगाडिको जेनेरेसनले त्यो च्याट जिपिटी प्रयोग पनि गर्न चाहँदैन होला, भनौँ न, सक्दैन भन्नु न, चाहन. त अनि त्यो समुदायले एक्जिक्युट गर्न सकिरहेको छैन.
त्यो समुदायले एक्जिक्युट भन्दा पनि दे डोन्ट ह्याभ टु मच अफ इन्साइट इन्टु वाट इज ह्यापनिङ.
हजुर.
एन्ड समवेयर दे हेभ अ रेजिस्टेन्स कि यसले डोमिनेट गर्दैन होला भने जस्तो. I mean, it's like this, 20 years ago when...
Fully dominate गर्दैन?
The new technology, the AI, the ML and all that we are talking about, त्यसले आउँदो 20 years what role will that have to play भन्ने कुरालाई हामीले a larger part of the business community has not been able to visualize, I would say. आज भन्दा 20 वर्ष अघि इन्टरनेट विल बिकम सो इम्पोर्टेन्ट भन्ने कसले सोचेको थियो र. एन्ड नेपालमा पनि मोबाइल फोन लन्च हुँदाखेरि इट वाज ओन्ली अबाउट मोबिलिटी. We never thought mobile phone will become almost everything.
Oxygen.
Yeah. I mean, today it's high time that some of my friends do talk about two things. One say communication is going to be free in the next 4-5 years. After that, you don't pay for communication.
किन एकचोटि त्यो फाइबर ले गरेपछि त सक्यो नि.
And plus, no, even the bandwidth. I mean, if you look at it, today, पहिला when I used to go to school in India or college in India, me and my dad had this understanding that every Sunday morning I'll be at a certain point where he can call me and I would answer the call, right? Maybe at a shop or maybe at a relative's place or whatever. Ajako dinma, and then we would to talk about 5 minutes and say, after this is too expensive to talk, hang up, right? That constraint nobody really cares about right now. With the IP-based voice, you are talking globally. And you are talking to, I talk to my son, or if I have to communicate with my son, I don't have to fix a time. I can reach him anytime, right?
Yeah.
So things have changed.
So what you're saying is this innovation mindset चाहिँ छैन.
Innovation mindset पनि छैन, innovation को exposure पनि छैन. दुवै छैन.
अनि त्यो त्यो डिरेक्सनमा चाहिँ हामी यो 3 दशकमा पनि जब कि हाम्रो उत्तर दक्षिण होइन चारैतिर हेर्ने हो भने यत्रो यो के इन्टरनेटले दिएको त हाम्रो एक्सेस छ त्यो सबै हुँदाहुँदै पनि त्यो माइन्डसेट र त्यो एक्सपोजर नहुनुको कारण चाहिँ के हो कहाँ स्टक छौँ
सी एज आई सेड मेरो जेनेरेसनभन्दा पहिला उहाँहरूलाई थाहा छैन भने ओके उहाँले सुन्नुभयो होला च्याट जिपिटी आज उहाँले पनि सुन्नुभएको छ एआई उहाँले पनि सुन्नुभएको छ बट दे थिङ्क ओके आई एम एट दि फ्याक एन्ड अफ माई करियर सो आई डोन्ट निड टु रियली मास्टर दिस बट मी माई स्ट्रगल इज I know these things will, I am convinced that these things will dominate business in the next 10 years. But I have very little idea of how they work and how I can amalgamate that into my current business. Right? And there's a new generation which talks about AI, ML and many other things theoretically. You know, you go to ChatGPT, put in a question, you get an answer. Seems wow. I mean, there's somebody who can answer everything. It took me a while to start putting into practice that I don't need to store general information on my laptop every time I see it. I can access it again next time, right? I had this habit of storing music. I had loads and loads of music on my laptop. Even after paying subscription for Spotify and Apple Music.
Right.
Even after that.
Even after,
I used to store it.
Right, right.
पहिला क्यासेट्समा स्टोर गरियो त्यसपछि सिडीमा गरियो अब ल्यापटप आयो भने माई ग्रेजुएसनमा कि ल मैले सिडी राख्न छोडिदिएँ आई स्टोर इट अन माई हार्ड डिस्क इट टुक मी अ वाइल टु एक्सेप्ट द्याट आई क्यान डिलिट द्याट फ्रम माई ल्यापटप it was like, you know, giving up on certain asset class that you hold on to.
Right.
But आजको दिनमा त्यो चाहिँदैन and a lot of informations for that matter, you know, it's available on the net. Anytime you can access it. All you need to make sure is that you have net availability, right?
Right.
So त्यही कन्टेक्स्टमा मैले भने कि आजको दिनमा we are talking about AI, we are very appreciative about Facebook, Airbnb and ChatGPT and the works. We have Bard has come in and so forth. But how do I use ChatGPT into my current operations? Where can it help me? Where can AI help me with improving my manufacturing process? One, that is on the hardware part of it. And where can AI or ML or anything of that sort can help me improve the customer experience,
right.
The soft skill part of it. They can do. अरू कम्पनीहरूले गरेको सुनिरहेछौँ बट आई स्टिल एम स्ट्रगलिङ टु ब्रिज द ग्याप हाउ डु आई ब्रिङ इट इन टु माई
सो तपाईँको ग्याप भनेको चाहिँ मलाई कसलाई भने आनन्दजी तपाईँको सुन्दाखेरि अब इट्स अ नलेज ग्याप होला अहिले होइन जुन चाहिँ तपाईँ जसरी हार्ड वायर्ड हुनुहुन्छ यु गोना फिगर इट आउट होइन तर अहिले यहाँले कस्तो एउटा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा भन्नु भने कतिवटा त्यो हाम्रो दिमागमा अथवा मनमा गर्ने तरिकाहरू हुन्छ वी डोन्ट लेट गो अफ इट एज इजिली बिकज यु नो इट हेज वर्क फर अस सो हामी कम्फर्ट जोनमा बस्न चाहन्छौँ सो वी डोन्ट लेट न्यू वेज अफ डुइङ थिङ्स लेट कम होइन त्यो त्यो डिसिजन गर्न नसक्नु भनेको मतलब त त्यो एउटा लिप अफ करेज होइन गर्न सकेनौँ तर रिस्क टेकिङलाई हामीले एउटा अलिकति इकोसिस्टमको स्ट्यान्ड पोइन्टबाट हेर्ने हो भने के हाम्रो अहिलेको इकोसिस्टम जहाँ चाहिँ भनौँ न फाइनेन्सिङको हिसाबले किनभने उद्यमीलाई त पैसा चाहियो के त्यो उद्यमीले खोजेको अलिक रिस्क फाइनेन्सिङ होइन को लागि वातावरण छ अथवा उसलाई कुनै एउटा नयाँ काम गर्दाखेरि त होइन उसलाई त्यो पोलिसी इन्भाइरोमेन्ट पनि चाहिएला रेगुलेसन्सले पनि कोअपरेट गर्नु पऱ्यो के त्यो छ भन्ने कुरा आउँछ सो मैले त्यसलाई चाहिँ त्यही कुरालाई त्यो रिस्क टेकिङ इन्भाइरोमेन्टको रूपबाट हेरिरहेको थिएँ कि त्यो इन्भाइरोमेन्ट यहाँ छ अहिले
रिस्क टेकिङ इन्भाइरोमेन्ट यसो छ कि रिस्क टेकिङ इन्भाइरोमेन्ट एन्ड
नट यु है तर आइएम नाउ टकिङ अबाउट ब्रडर पपुलेसन कि यहाँ त एउटा जोर्नीबाट जानुभयो यु नो वी आर लुकिङ फर द्याट नेक्स्ट इनोभेसन भन्नुभयो नि यहाँले गरिसक्यौँ अब यो 4-5 वर्ष चाहिँ हामीले के गराएको छैनौँ आइएम सोर्ट अफ लाइक रेस्टलेस भनिरहनु भएको छ होइन त वाट अबाउट द बिगर क्राउड देयर धेरै युवाहरू जुन अर्बन सेक्टरमा पनि होला नत्र ग्रामीण सेक्टरमा पनि उनीहरूको लागि रिस्क टेकिङ इन्भाइरोमेन्ट छ अहिले
risk-taking environment kaile pani hudaina. I mean, let me be very honest. Tomorrow we say, okay, yo policy reform chahiyo, yo banking reform chahiyo, all that will happen. The measure of risk in 5 years will move away from what we are talking today and will become something else. Today, the biggest risk is redundancy in whatever you are doing, be it whatever business that you are doing. Redundancy in the sense that technology is moving so fast that you buy a phone today, 2 years later it becomes obsolete in the sense that it doesn't have certain features, right? And you want more. So risk-taking environment bhanda pani risk-taking mindset is more important. And historically, it is never the environment or the surroundings that has created great inventions or great businesses. It is the thought process, how you look at things, the gaps.
How do we nurture that mindset in our youth today?
How do you nurture that is something which, certain things are very curiosity based. And how do you create curiosity is probably the upbringing, the schooling, right from the beginning, right? I mean, I have some friends who would ask who, why, what for every damn thing, and to the point of annoyance. Yeah.
हाम्रो बच्चाहरूले गर्छन् नि है
हैन? But then there are some kids who go so deep into the subject that they know certain subjects more than probably so-called experts also, because information is so easily available, right? So curiosity लाई कसरी नर्चर गर्ने भन्ने कुरा गर्नु जरुरी छ. Visualization लाई कसरी नर्चर गर्ने, imagination लाई कसरी नर्चर गर्ने, so at the end of it somewhere science and technology को साथ साथमा fine arts पनि जोडिया हो कि is where I have started feeling, coming from an engineering background, I tend to look at things very analytically, very data based, but not everything is data based.
Analysis साथ साथै art पनि छ.
Art चाहियो. Visualize beyond. I mean, when Star Trek movie was launched, it was a fiction, but a lot of things you see in reality right now, right? So somebody visualized it. We have to allow our kids to visualize beyond reality. And things are changing, right? I mean, as a kid, I used to remember, oh, kaile yo phone ma, when can I see my friend when I'm talking to him? Today, it's a reality.
Yeah.
Not today, it's been a reality for a long time now. Right? And hopefully someday with the AI, we are talking about what? Augmented reality and virtual reality and stuff like that. You might be, visiting an old, I might be able to take my dad to Gokyo Lake sitting at home.
Yeah. So यहाँले भन्नुभएको त्यो authentic curiosity, imagination लाई चाहिँ हामीले सानैदेखि क्युरिकुलममा हुन्छ अथवा बच्चालाई हुर्काउने प्रक्रियामा हुन्छ, त्यो ल्याउनु पर्यो. हुन त अहिले कस्तो छ हेर्नुहोस् न, गाह्रो छ एज एन लाइक फ्री स्पेसेस नै छैन क्या, खुला ठाउँ नै छैन, बच्चालाई लिएर कहाँ जाने.
But another part is science can be documented, right? So far, all scientific advancements have been documented. It is available for many generations to come from now. Art cannot be documented. Visualization cannot be documented. I cannot say, मैले यहाँसम्म हेरे छोरा, अब त्यसपछिको तिमी हेर्नु भनेर. It doesn't work like that, right? You have to see the whole movie.
Yeah.
So and then try to convert it, right? So that's the environment which अहिले मैले पनि struggle गरेको के छु भने, I see the other side where we are talking about AI, ML and things like that. I know that things are going to change, and if I don't disrupt it, I will be disrupted.
How do you inspire this sense of imagination in your team, Nimbus Pitra? What are you doing? Because
that's a
अब त तपाईं एउटा अर्कै ठाउँमा पुगिसक्नु नि. Now you don't have time to sit with people and keep hammering innovation and imagination.
So this is the point which I'm struggling with. Right. I have a great operative team. They execute it well. They have taken over all the repetitive tasks that happens within the organization. But now there is a huge gap between what I am thinking and what the team is doing. Okay, on the current of operations, they are doing a fantastic job. But what I am thinking is something which is not connected as yet. I have not been able to connect it, so I have not been able to communicate to them the way they would understand best, and then the collaboration comes in. So this is where the struggle is. So I've been meeting a lot of young what do you say, technology enthusiasts. Try to understand what they mean by AI. I've been attending a lot of web seminars. I've been attending a lot of possibilities, but then I'm still not clear how does this future link with my present.
करेक्ट, होइन ठिक हो। यो तर कस्तो चाहिँ कुरा पनि रहेछ आनन्दजी भने अब हामीहरूले मैले अरूहरूसँग चाहे त्यो पडकास्ट हो वा अन्य ठाउँबाट कुरा गर्दाखेरि धेरैजनाको समस्या यही छ कि यो क्रिएटिभिटी, इनोभेसन अनि यो बााउन्डरी लेसनेसको जुन कुरा गरिरहेको छौँ होइन, त्यहाँ चाहिँ यो ग्याप।
But in our case, we are not even trying to visualize AI application to my current operation. I'm trying to say what AI has already been developed, how do I adapt it? Right. So, ahileको केसमा I am not being the science behind the future. I'm not even being the deterrent in the current operations. But I'm trying to become the artist, trying to make it a smooth shade of transition. So right now the struggle is more internal than with anybody else.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah. Maybe that is the struggle. तपाईले जुन लास्ट 5 इयर्समा जुन खोजिरहनु भएको एउटा नयाँ उछ नि, त्यो भनेको चाहिँ एउटा सायद एउटा कुकुन पनि छ, त्यसलाई ब्रेक गर्नलाई त्यो मेक ब्रेक इनोभेट भन्ने कुरा त्यही हो। त्यो बनाइसक्नु भयो, त्यसलाई त्यो के कुराहरू ब्रेक पनि गर्नु छ, which is not going to be easy because there are institutional norms. तर maybe that is the way forward. I wanted to talk about ecosystem को कुरा गर्दाखेरि फाइनेन्सको कुरा हैन। अब हो एउटा उद्यमी अथवा एउटा युवामा कस्तो खालको मानसिकता छ हैन, त्यो कुरा महत्त्वपूर्ण छ उसको। तर एट द सेम टाइम अब एउटा ठाउँमा पुगिसकेपछि उसलाई त रिसोर्स चाहिन्छ हैन, अनि त्यो रिसोर्सको एक्सेसको कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ आई वान्टेड टु टक अबाउट यो डेभलपमेन्ट फाइनेन्सिङ के एक्सेस ब्याङ्किङ सेक्टर पनि छ, त्यो पनि छ हैन। अर्को डेभलपमेन्ट फाइनेन्स, किनभने एउटा लामो समयसम्म अब यो डेभलपमेन्ट फन्ड्सहरूको प्रयोग सोसियल डेभलपमेन्ट सेक्टरमा भएको हो हैन। तर अहिले त प्राइभेट सेक्टरसँग पनि नजिकबाट काम हुन थालेको छ, किनभने इकोनोमिक ग्रोथ महत्त्वपूर्ण भयो भन्ने न्यारेटिभ छँदैछ। अहिले त यो ग्रिड भनिन्छ हैन, यो सबै कुराहरू पनि छन्। वाट हेज बिन यु एक्सपिरियन्स? के हामीहरू यो डेभलपमेन्ट फाइनेन्सिङको जुन एउटा यो वेभ आइरहेछ, इज दिस गोइङ इन द राइट डाइरेक्सन इन द कन्ट्री? वाट आर सम अफ द प्रोस्पेक्ट्स एन्ड पिटफल्स?
I think this development finance that we are talking about is a very recent phenomenon. Paila it was more about social impact and stuff like that. And then suddenly there's been a rhetoric where they've said that the social impact has to happen through business and has to be sustainable business. Right? So, and then the PPP word and all that stuff has come in. But right now the situation is that whole transition is at its cusp. The development guys have still not got over the social angle. So when they talk to business, they try to impose what they had learned. They have not been able to unlearn Janmanchamami. And, excuse me. And unlearn nogareko hunale. And on this other side, the business treats that money as free money. त्यो free money आएपछि त्यो free money को लोभले they sign on dotted lines. So what happens in the process is, many times, I wouldn't say always, but many times, the core of the idea is lost and the endeavor gets dominated by the social angle of it. So just to give you an example, we had started ride-share operations and we were bootstrapping kind of thing. What is the risk? What is the financial risk you want to take and stuff like that. Yes. And this financing option came in. But what did they bring to the table is the money which we were desperately looking for. But then they also brought in 2 or 3 ideas. Electric vehicles. right now I am working on a ride-share application. I least care about electrical vehicles. I care about vehicles. It could be electrical, but I cannot focus I need to break even. I need to make it sustainable. Business is all about making it sustainable first and then profitable, right? So even before it got sustainable, because there's money on the table, the focus moves towards green, moves towards electric. Second, gender. Business has no gender, right? Business is looking at survival. There are 2 people, 3 people operating the company. Gender, I mean, with all due respect, business, once you put the money on the table and say, these are the criteria you have to meet, the focus is lost. The vision becomes a little blurred. And this is what happened. So jun gap छ, okay, that money can be put to if जुन किसिमले डिफाइन गरेर त्यसलाई सोशल इम्प्याक्टबाट सोशल इम्प्याक्ट थ्रु बिजनेसेस इन अ सस्टेनेबल म्यानरको कुरा गरिएको थियो, त्यो फुल लुपलाई कभर गर्ने हो भने इट इज अमेजिङ कन्सेप्ट, but त्यो भइरहेको छैन.
गर्न सकिन्छ,
पक्कै सकिन्छ, but the
ट्रिपल बटम लाइन भन्ने कुरा जुन छ नि त्यो, इज द्याट पोसिबल?
It is possible, but the actors have to change.
Right.
Actors have to change in the sense, you are talking to this generation which is talking about AI, but is implemented by a generation which doesn't even understand AI. Not even my generation, older than that. Right? So if you look at the आज हाम्रो जति पनि डेभलपमेन्ट फाइनान्स का जति पनि हेड्सहरू छन्, name one guy who is 27 years old. So you don't have competitors there. I am trying to compete with the guy who is not even in businesses yet.
Yeah.
And the guy who's trying to get into business is having to compete with the guy who's going to be out of business in the next 2 years. How will the thought process manage?
Yeah.
The guy sitting here doesn't even care about what is going to happen in the next 10 years. Because he's not going to be around to see that business. Right? So his responsibility, he all cares about is next 2 years. And this guy who has a whole life to work on, and for him things change much faster than the guy he's dealing with. The guy who is dealing with can't even fathom that the change is so fast. And here is this guy who's saying every 6 months things are changing. So there is a total mismatch there.
Right.
So be it technology and conventional business coming together, be it social impact fund trying to route impact through businesses, there's a gap there.
Oh, so मैले के बुझेँ भने सोशल इम्प्याक्टको डाइरेक्सनमा विथ डेभलपमेन्ट मनी हामीहरू जाने क्रममा चाहिँ मिसन क्रिप भयो एउटा. अर्को भनेको चाहिँ त्यो मिसन क्रिप पनि हुने क्रममा त्यो इकोनोमिक्स नै भायोलेटेड हुन थाल्यो. त्यो इकोनोमिक्सबाटै टाढा गयौँ. मिसनमा पनि अब हुन्छ नि इकोनोमिक्स मिलिरहेको भए चाहिँ आउटपुट आउँथ्यो, प्रफिटेबल नै हुन्थ्यो. तर अब त त्यो प्रफिट पनि छैन. अनि हामी यो प्रफिट, प्लानेट र पिपल होइन, यो 3टा कुरा भन्छौँ. त्यो प्रफिट नै छैन भने अनि त्यो बाँकी कुराहरू मात्रै भएर त त्यो चल्दैन. अनि सायद यहाँले
र अर्को कुरा पनि हेर्नुहोस् न, फन्डिङ मोडल्स हेभ चेन्ज, राइट? P&L, conventional businesses look at P&L. Businesses have stopped looking at P&L, the newer business, especially tech-driven businesses, which have become the largest companies in the last decade or so globally. Who is looking at P&Ls? They are looking at market capitalization. How did Facebook happen? Till one point of time, Facebook had not a single penny of revenue.
First 5 years, the negative mein huncha.
Negative. And how do you fund it? You fund it by offloading shares at a premium. Even if you make today Airbnb, today what's that ride share, Uber, all these guys, their balance sheets are nothing great, but their market capitalizations are amazing. This is very interesting. We are inspired by the market capitalization, but we are in a hurry. So we start market capitalizing our ideas itself without execution. So now you go to a startup summit, there'll be hundreds of good ideas that will come up, but the asking would be so high that it kind of dies out there. होइन इन्भेस्टरले लगानी गर्नको लागि what we are forgetting is that how will the investor get his return त्यो कुरालाई हामी बिर्सिरहेछौँ so let's look at this हाम्रो I'll give you one example. A friend of mine he runs a company which has become a unicorn in India. It's valued at 5 billion almost.
Good for him.
But he's only about he and his co-founder, two friends, they're only about 10 or 12% shareholders of that company. Rest is funded by the captain
market.
Yeah.
हजुर
अब हामी कहाँ के हुँदो रहेछ भने the moment we talk about it, we've not gone into that detailing of the international market. We say, okay, my idea is $1 billion idea, but who's going to put in the $1 billion? So what he wants is, he wants to sell 10% at 100 million.
Yeah. Is this like तपाईँले तपाईँले त फन्डरको ह्याट पनि लगाउनुहुन्छ नि त अहिले त है मैले बुझिहाल्छ कहिले कहिले लगाउनुहुन्छ सो यो इन्फ्याचुएसन र इन्फ्लेसनको बारे जुन कुरा गर्नु भएको छ नि मलाई त्यस्तो लाग्यो कि गर्नु चाहिँ यो मन छ म यहाँ छु यो भन्ने अनि त्यसपछि अनि इन्फ्लेटेड नम्बर्सहरूसँग खेलिरहेछन् यु सी सो टेल अस लाइक इफ यु वर टु इन्भेस्ट इन अ कम्पनी what are the few things that you're going to look for?
I would look for 5 years of cash flow.
Okay.
How will you manage the cash flow? While you are executing it, you may not be profitable, but how are you going to manage the cash flow? I'm okay with diluting my shares if the cash flow is supported by somebody else.
Okay.
When the cash flow is supported by somebody else, it also means that the other person is also taking a risk on your idea. He's betting on your idea, right? So it is a kind of shared risk between 5 people, or 50 people, but at different valuations. I started at par. You come in at 10x or 5x or 2x. The last entrant comes in at 100x. But at the end of it, who's getting diluted? I'm getting diluted. I can keep my share till the time I can keep funding it. But the moment I don't want to fund further, or I don't have the resource to fund further, then. So if it's $1 billion idea, you have to have a plan to. $1 billion market capitalization happens once somebody buys the share at $1 billion valuation, right? For that to reach, you have to sell your shares or you have to dilute yourself. त्यो dilute को culture हामी कहाँ छैन
होइन मान्छेहरू 100% नै यो लामो समयसम्म ओन गरेर नै चाहन्छन्
सो यो तपाईँले हेर्नु होला कन्भेन्सनल बिजनेसमा पनि people don't like to अब हामी कहाँ there are some big companies who are still privately held. They don't even want to go for an IPO, whereas we are talking
family
about
companies.
But whereas here this generation is talking about market capitalization without going into without giving your share to somebody else, without sharing the gain and the risk with somebody else, how will market capitalization?
Right. यो डिरेक्सनमा चाहिँ जान लागेको रहेछ है अहिले यो कतिवटा नयाँ कम्पनीज जस्ट लुकिङ एट रिसेन्टली यो फोन पेले आई फर्गेट द एनएमबीसँग है कोसँग मिलेर देयर अबाउट टु गो पब्लिक होइन
यस
प्रोसेस चाहिँ सुरु भइरहेको
छ हजुर बट मच स्लोअर देन द
भेरी स्लो
रेस्ट अफ द वर्ल्ड
भेरी स्लो
एन्ड द्याट टु विच कम्पनीज आर गोइङ विच हेभ अलरेडी एस्टाब्लिस सेक्टरका कम्पनी होइन बट फर मी टु कम इन let's say if I am
इनिशियल फेजेसमा जान चाहदैन
त्यो इकोसिस्टम क्रिएट भएको छैन एन्ड किन जान चाहदैन वान अफ द मेजर रिजन्स इफ समबडी केम अप विथ अ ग्रेट आइडिया एन्ड इट फेल्ट लाइक देयर इज अ 50-50 रिस्क आई माइट बी इन्ट्रेस्टेड बट हि इज आस्किङ विदाउट इभन एक्जिक्युटिङ वान स्टेप अफ द्याट होल प्रोजेक्ट हि इज आस्किङ इज 100 times more देन इट बिकम्स
सो यो अगेन अनदर इकोसिस्टमको एउटा महत्त्वपूर्ण स्टेक होल्डरको बारेमा चाहिँ एकैछिनपछि कुरा गरौँला गभर्मेन्टको बारेमा FNCCI होइन FNCCI एक्सक्युज मी प्राइभेट सेक्टरको रिप्रेजेन्ट गर्ने अब प्राइभेट सेक्टरलाई अर्गनाइज गर्ने त्यसको भोइसलाई रिप्रेजेन्ट गर्ने गभर्मेन्टको अगाडि पनि बडी हो यो इकोसिस्टम जुन कुरा गर्दैछौँ नि अहिले जहाँ हुनुपर्ने थियो जस्तो किसिमको रिस्क टेकिङ एपिटाइट युथमा हुनुपर्ने थियो अथवा यो कस्तो ट्रेन्डमा जाँदैछ होइन कतातिर जाँदैछ भन्ने कुरा पनि त्यसलाई अलिकति गाइड गर्ने पनि रेस्पोन्सिबिलिटी छ नि यो संस्थामा सो टेल अस अबाउट वाट FNCCI इज डुइङ टु स्ट्रेन्थन दिस टाइप अफ रिस्क टेकिङ इकोसिस्टम अनि अहिले ग्याप चाहिँ कहाँ छ त्यसको काम गराइ
FNCCI को अहिलेसम्मको रोल मोर अफ वाज पोलिसी फ्रेमवर्कमा काम गर्ने ब्रिज द ग्याप बिट्विन द गभर्मेन्ट एन्ड द larger section of the business community होइन त्यसमा there can be contradictory views between two sectors because it could play, one sector may want something which kind of is detrimental to the other sector. So त्यो gap bridge गरेर एउटा भनौँ न कि कोहेसिभ वेमा गभर्मेन्टलाई या गभर्मेन्टको थिङ्क ट्याङ्कलाई भनौँ न इम्प्रेस गर्ने प्रयास गर्ने लजिकली इम्प्रेस गर्ने प्रयास गर्ने एन्ड समटाइम्स लबी पनि गर्ने होइन टु पुश फर सर्टन रिफर्म्स अहिलेसम्मको रोल यो थियो बट लास्ट टर्मदेखि दे हेभ स्टार्टेड committee called the Startup Committee as well. And they are doing, I mean, FNCCI ko sabanda plus point kyo bani, they are present all over Nepal.
Yes.
So they are, they reach out to all kinds of entrepreneurs, all kinds of businessmen.
Yeah.
When I say all kinds, I don't mean monetarily big and small, but I also mean varied businesses. होइन एन्ड त्यो भेरिड बिजनेसेसको एउटा एमाल्गमेसन एफएनसिसिआई हो र त्यहाँ लगेर दिस स्टार्टअप initiative, what they are trying to do, I mean, it's at its early stages, but what they are trying to do is to bridge the gap between ideas and investors. And also trying to, what we just spoke about, that let's create something which is realistic valuations, realistic, executions. त्यसको एउटा थलो बनाउने प्रयास भएको छ and fairly successfully we've done this. Ranjit Acharya was heading this.
अहिले जुनाजीले हेड गर्नुभयो त्यो कमिटी
जुनाले गरेको छ कि I'm not too sure, but I think I know for sure Ranjit was involved because
Startup and Innovation Committee जुनाजीले अहिले हजुर.
Okay, so she's yet to put her plans forward, but अहिलेसम्म what was done by FNCCI was appreciable. And I think this kind of efforts will bring this part of the generation into more realistic thing and probably help people like me understand how technology. So I get a chance to explain to this generation what my core competence is, and this generation gets to explore with me on the possibilities of a future.
Right.
So त्यो gap bridge गर्ने प्रयास भइरहेछ. So this is FNCCI certainly worn a new hat which is very futuristic, and I think this might become a major agenda in the years to come.
होइन जसरी हामीले कुरा गरिरहेछौँ अहिले त यो देशमा एउटा स्टार्टअपको मेन्टालिटी नै इन्स्टल गर्नु छ अनि त्यहाँ चाहिँ एफएनसिसिआईको त्यो लेजिटिमेसी
किनकि आफ्टर अ पोइन्ट अफ टाइम पोलिसी रेगुलेसन विल फलो डिसरप्सन.
हरेक देशमा भएको त्यही हो. थोरै देशहरू इजरायल जस्तो देशहरूमा चाहिँ उनीहरूले सुरुमै त्यो एउटा फन्ड इस्टाब्लिस गर्न सफल भयो तर दे वर लाइक सुप्रिम त्यो पायनियर्सहरू. धेरै जस्तो देशमा त प्राइभेट सेक्टरले नै
होइन त्यो त भयो on the part of but when we talk about regulatory framework is a follow through process. It is never an initiating process. So any disruption doesn't. Today ride share happened in Nepal. Regulatory framework त अहिलेसम्म पनि छैन
नि.
We keep seeing those disruptions where Patao or Tutul is asked to stop operations and stuff like that. But whereas if you ask the public, for them life has become easier.
There you go.
Right? If I'm stuck in a traffic, I get off and hail a bike.
Yeah, and at a lower cost.
At a lower cost. Right? And sometimes cost भन्दा पनि convenience is more important. And cost को पनि एउटा parameter छ नि.
Exactly.
See when you deal with a person to person, you are talking about negotiation. You might say 500 and settle at 50. But when you're dealing with a system, it will give you a range. 50 to 100. And if that is acceptable to you, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's no question of 500 after that. Right? So people feel... but त्योलाई हामीले अब larger scale मा amplify कसरी गर्ने त?
That is the question.
Yeah. So even when we talk about ride sharing, you have ride sharing on bikes. See, ride sharing in the US, Uber started with not taxi model. It was you while going to work, picking up somebody and dropping him.
Carpooling
kind of thing, and you made some money out of it. That was the whole idea, right? when Uber came to India, it deployed taxis. When rideshare happened in Nepal, today you don't have rideshare bikes as taxis. They are individually owned bikes. There are few people who probably use it as a full-time job, but most of them are people who are commuting between point A to point B, and they take extra. But why is that not happening on a four-wheeler? We need to break that mindset, right? त्यो
हुन्छ समय लाग्छ
बट रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क अब आइदियो भने इट विल बी फास्ट.
हजुर. अब हामीहरू यो रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्कहरूको गभर्मेन्टको भूमिका यी कुराहरू गर्ने क्रममा अहिलेसम्म हामीहरूले इनोभेसनको लागि इनोभेसन माइन्डसेट इन दि एन्टरप्रेन्योर इनोभेसनको वरिपरिको इन्भाइरोमेन्ट स्टेक होल्डर्सहरूको कुरा गऱ्यौँ होइन. त त्यो इनोभेसन अर्बन मात्रै नभएन रुरल नेपालमा पनि महत्त्वपूर्ण, स्पेसली कृषि क्षेत्रमा हेर्ने हो भने चाहिँ हामीहरूले प्रोडक्सन जुन भइरहेछ किसानहरू धेरै जस्तो त्यो प्रोडक्सनकै एउटा लुपमा अड्किरहेको जस्तो पाउँदछौँ नि त. त्यहाँ पनि गभर्मेन्टको भूमिका अथवा रेगुलेटरी इन्भाइरोमेन्टको भूमिका होला होइन. सो आई वान्ट टु टक मोर अबाउट यो द आइडिया अफ how to enable farmers to become agri-entrepreneurs, how to enable them to go from your subsistence mindset to growth mindset के. अनि त्यहाँ त यहाँले त धेरै यस्ता उद्यमीहरू युवाहरूसँग काम गर्नुभएको होला होइन. What do you think is preventing them to not think about to stay at the mindset of के अरे 5वटा गाई के 100वटा गाई 1000वटा गाईको सोच चाहिँ नबन्नुको कारण के हो?
I think I'll again go back to what I had said earlier. Failure is not an option. So the moment you are an entrepreneur, failure is not an option. त्यो भयो भने त्यो what it takes to तछाड मछाड जुन गर्नुपर्छ नि to make it happen, त्यो सायद हाम्रो अहिले कृषि क्षेत्रमा इन्भल्भ स्पेशली त्यो गर्नु परिरहेको छैन.
किन?
Because look at it this way, that half the things around krishi is either subsidized or is free.
Right.
You talk about
input subsidies haru haina?
Input subsidies. Gai palan cha bhane half the medicals are free, AI is free, and so many here AI is artificial insemination, right? All those are free. So it's like saying I don't even know the cost of production. Right.
Right.
I know. And that has been made so complacent that how many people per unit of land, or how many people per unit of production, or how many people involved in that whole thing र कति चाहियो भन्ने कुराको क्याल्कुलेसन छैन. यो चलिरहेछ, चलिराखेको छ भने जस्तो होइन. एन्ड टाइममा के भइरहेछ भने गभर्मेन्टले एमएसपीजहरू फिक्स गरेर सिक्योर गरिदिइरहेछ. सो त्यो एनेबलिङ इन्भाइरोमेन्ट टु बिकम एन एन्टरप्रेन्योर त्यो छँदै छैन.
राइट.
सो what you just said, एक गाई पालेको छ, अर्को 2 वर्षपछि 2 पालेपछि इट्स डबल भयो नि त त्यो होइन. 100% ग्रोथ देखियो. बट तथ्याङ्कले नै देखायो. Earlier in our conversation we talked about science, data and art. The art part of is missing. Somebody has to be able to visualize. एक गाउँले केवल गाई पाल्ने हो, एक गाउँले डेरी नै लगाउने हो कि या स्पेशलाइजेसनमा जाने,
विशिष्टीकरण
स्पेशलाइजेसनमा जाने हो. सो त्यो कुरा भइरहेको छैन. एन्ड एट द एन्ड अफ इट what is it promoting? It is promoting barter trade. Within the village, somebody gives milk, somebody gives you we all know it, right?
Basically त्यही नै हो.
आजको दिनमा what is agriculture? At the end of it is food. Right? But our statistics also show that we import a lot of food.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a conundrum in some ways, right?
No, I look at it, I see it as a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
यता inefficiency छ, यता import भइरहेछ. In between is the opportunity. Why do you think I got into what I'm doing? The same thing. I stumbled into feed. Somebody could stumble into cottage cheese. Somebody could do tofu. Somebody could do just aggregation. Somebody could. There's so much to be done.
Production भइरहेछ तर पनि हामी import गरिरहेछौँ. होइन चाहिने प्रोडक्सन यही छ तर पनि त्यो कता कता हराएछ
सो हामी कहाँ भ्याल्यु एड भएको छैन हामी बारम्बार न्युजमा पढ्छौँ नि हर्ब्स आर बिङ सेन्ट एक्सपोर्टेड टु इन्डिया एन्ड देन हर्बल प्रडक्ट्स आर बिङ इम्पोर्टेड फुडमा पनि त्यस्तै भइरहेछ गहुँ गइरहेछ अन्य प्रडक्ट्स आइरहेछ पास्ता आइरहेछ पिठो आइरहेछ whatever. सो त्यो there are two ways of solving this. One is government becoming progressive.
Right.
त्यो अहिले देखिँदैन. This we don't see it happening because that's also a large vote bank. And appeasement to that vote bank has always been our agenda. And democracy, unfortunately, is all about votes. And distortion, it was not meant to be like that, but distortions happen. But other way of it is entrepreneurial ecosystem.
र स्पेसली त्यो अझै ग्रामीण भेगमा हेर्ने हो भने त कतिचोटि त जहाँ एउटा ब्याङ्क पनि हुँदैन अनि जुन ब्याङ्क छ उसले आफ्नो हिसाबले इन्ट्रेस्ट चार्ज गर्छ
हो बट आज तपाईँ यसो सोच्नुहोस् कि इफ देयर वाज अ जेन्टलम्यान इन समवेयर एन्ड हामी यहाँ एकचोटि पाल्पा गएको थियौँ सो वान अफ दोज गाइज सेज ओके नाउ आई वान्ट टु ग्रेजुएट फ्रम 100 cows to 2000 cows.
दुर्गाबहादुर खाँडकोमा गएको थियो है कृष्ण गेवालीज्यू यहाँ म ठिक ठिक
सो इफ यु हेभ टु ग्रेजुएट टु द्याट लेभल इट निड्स इन्ट्रिकेट प्लानिङ which will include every aspect, financial, land, everything that, and market of course. 1000 गाईको 2 लिटरको हिसाबले पनि डेली मिल्क कलेक्सनमा पनि 2000 liters, what will you do with it भन्ने कुरा.
साँच्चै उहाँको केसमा चाहिँ थ्रु द मोडल अफ कोअपरेटिभ he is where you want him to be.
Okay. So he is a lead example. Similarly, if we can create on different products, different levels, and then we talk about market linkages. So why cannot Bhat Bateni tie up with a farmer in... I would not want Bhat Bateni to tie up with a farmer. I would want Bhat Bateni to tie up with a village.
With the village?
Yeah.
Interesting. Tell us more about this.
So the village has to be specialized, right? FNCCI ले पनि प्रोग्रामहरु त चलाइरहेछ one village, one product kind of thing. But त्यसलाई कृषिमा लाने हो भने अनि म यसलाई कृषि भन्दै भन्दिनँ म यसलाई फुड भन्छु.
तपाईले भिलेज भन्दाखेरि पालिका सोच्नु भयो लाइक एउटा गाउँ सरकार कुनै एउटा सरकार चाहिँ इन्भल्भ भएर उसले सामान किनिदियो त्यो चाहिँ अनि
सो त्यो सरकारले फर्स्ट अफ अल त आफ्नो 5-year प्लानमा यो गर्नु पर्यो कि हाम्रो भिलेजको यो स्पेसियालिटी आई विल नट फोकस अन एनिथिङ एन्ड एभ्रिथिङ राइट आई विल नट प्रमोट बार्टर ट्रेड एनिमोर एन्ड आई विल डु रियल बिजनेस सो भन्नुको मतलब हामी गहुँ उत्पादन गर्छौँ र मिल्क उत्पादन सो लेट्स थिङ्क ओन्ली अराउन्ड दिस टु एन्ड त्यो गाउँमा जति पनि गभर्मेन्ट सपोर्ट छ cash kind, all goes into only these products. Anybody else growing oranges,
गर्नुहोस् तर हामी हात हाल्दैनौँ
यो दुईटामा हामी गर्छौँ एन्ड फर द्याट सामूहिक जे इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिन्छ कोल्ड रुमदेखि लिएर प्रोसेसिङ रुम वाट एभर इट इज रिक्वायर्ड इन द नेक्स्ट 5 years गभर्मेन्ट्स मे नट हेभ द एबिलिटी टु पुट इट अप इन one shot बट इन द नेक्स्ट 5 years वाट एभर मनी वी हेभ
बरु सब्सिडी त्यहाँ प्रयोग गर्ने
त्यो प्रयोग गर्ने कमन इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चरमा प्रयोग गर्ने कमन म्यानेजमेन्टमा ल्याउने होइन त्यहाँबाट आज भनौँ न सुन्तला या इफ यु आर टकिङ अबाउट सुन्तला खेती गर्ने हो भने सुन्तला खेती कमसेकम त्यहाँ जति जग्गा छ एउटा एस्टिमेट त गर्न सकिन्छ नि कि दिस इज द काइन्ड अफ सुन्तला खेती आई क्यान गेट द नेक्स्ट स्टेज विल कम वेयर दे विल से अब सुन्तला के गर्ने त सुन्तला बेच्ने विच मिन्स प्याकेजिङ गरौँ त्यसमा लेबलिङ गरौँ वाट एभर यु नो यु माइट हेभ अर्ग्यानिक सुन्तला अर पेस्टिसाइड फ्री सुन्तला वाट एभर त्यो गरेर लेट्स ब्रिङ इट इन टु द मार्केट होइन हामी कहाँ नेपालमा सजिलो के छ भने गाउँपालिका या वाट एभर यु नो दिस क्लस्टर्स आर भेरी स्मल क्लस्टर्स दे आर नट कन्जम्सन पोइन्ट्स दे आर प्रोडक्सन पोइन्ट्स अराउन्ड देम देयर इज अ लट अफ ल्यान्ड बट द कन्जम्सन इज भेरी लिटल
त्यो प्रोडक्सनमै जाउँ है त म त्यो प्रोडक्सनलाई मार्केटसँग जोड्ने कुरामा पुग्नुभन्दा अगाडि त्यो प्रोडक्सनलाई अझै प्रोडक्टिभिटी बढाउने एउटा तरिका भनेको त प्रविधि हो नि त
तपाईँलाई लाग्छ प्रविधिको कमी
छैन म त्यही पजल आउट गर्न खोजिरहेको कि प्रविधि पनि पुग्या सरकारले त द्यादै छ जस्तो लाग्छ अनुदानहरू होइन इनपुट बेस्ड सब्सिडिजहरू त यो किन्यो भने 80% अथवा कतिचोटि त त्यो औजारहरू नै दिनुहुन्छ बिउ पनि दिएको छ तर त्यो प्रोडक्टिभिटी चाहिँ बढिरहेको छैन नि
हो सो त्यसको कारण के त्यसको कारण यो हो कि हामी कम्पिटिटिभ इन्भाइरोमेन्टै क्रिएट गरेका छैनौँ हामी तपाईँलाई अगेन कमिङ ब्याक टु द फर्स्ट थिङ,
फेलियर इज नट एन अप्सन.
त्यो अवस्थामा जबसम्म पुग्दैनौ त्यो बेलासम्म कोही न कोही त बचाउन आइहाल्छ नि.
ऊ सबसिस्टेन्स माइन्डसेटमा बसिरह्यो.
If you jump into a pool and you know that there's the lifeguard there, he'll come and save me, why will you even try to swim?
Right.
Exactly as that.
So we need to make them work harder and smarter and more creatively. जसलाई चाहिँ मार्केटसँग लिङ्क गरेर हेर्नै पर्यो हामीहरूले.
So then next question comes in, if you have the produce, see, don't worry about efficiency at this point of time. Right now, the current scenario demands quantitative output. होइन. आज नेपालमा सुन्तलाको कुरा गर्ने हो भने we grow so much of oranges, but we are so scattered. If I want to buy 10 truckloads or 100 truckloads this month, and if I want to set up a factory, processing unit, can I get it at one place?
बिरगञ्ज जानु पर्यो तपाईँ.
त्यो त उतैबाट आउँछ.
मैले त्यही भनेको
होइन. हामी कहाँ छ उत्पादन, बट एग्रिगेसन
छैन.
So if there is one village which produces all of that, the future is they might even set up a processing unit. होइन. And then there's a brand around it. It will come to the likes of Bhat Bhatini, Sailways or whoever. And so many more, right? I mean, those will start selling it. So the market linkage has to happen at that level. And then once this linkage establishes itself, efficiency आफै आउँछ. आज टेक्नोलोजीको जमानामा हामी सुरुदेखि कुरा गरिरहेका छौँ. We started with a point saying information, data and science is recorded, right? आज जो पनि टेक्नोलोजीको हामी कुरा गर्दैछौँ, that is science. It is recorded. It's available somewhere or the other. And there are so many companies which have evolved based on that science, are out there in the market to sell their products. So technology is being percolated down to every level by private sector. हामी त्यसलाई टेक्नोलोजी ट्रान्सफर मान्दैनौँ. होइन. हामीलाई के चाहियो भने गभर्मेन्टको जेटिएले नै गएर सिकाएपछि टेक्नोलोजी ट्रान्सफर हुन्छ. वेयर गभर्मेन्टको जेटिए प्रब्ली इज आउटडेटेड. हाम्रो जुन रिसर्च फेसिलिटिजहरू छन् त्यसमा रिसर्च कस्ता भइरहेछन् भने द रिसर्च ह्यापनिङ देयर इज एट अ लेभल विच द ग्लोबल स्ट्यान्डर्ड्स आर मच हायर देन द्याट. So why are we trying to re-establish that protocol or the numbers? होइन, जरुरी छैन. So the thing is, economy, business triggers a lot of things. Once you are pressed against the wall, you try to become efficient, you try to be creative, you try to do things like right now. The Nepalese business community is pressed against the wall. For the last 1 year, the businesses have been low. We have seen an economic decline.
Slow down,
the cost of money has gone up, right? And the sentiments are very, very, non-upbeat. And so, त्यो context ma, most of us, we are bleeding, losses, but most of us are trying to figure out what new. How do I cut costs? How do I make customer experience better? How do my product become the product of first choice? All these things are being done. But think of a dairy scenario now. गाई पालिरहेछ होइन. गभर्मेन्टले एउटा प्रोक्योरमेन्ट प्राइस फिक्स गरिदिएको छ. राइट. अब उसलाई के छ, उसको घरमा पाँचवटा गाई छ भने 2 लिटरको हिसाबले 10 लिटर जम्मा भयो भने घरमा 5 जना मेम्बर छ, खाएर बचेपछि 6 लिटर बच्छ. They go and deposit it to the chilling center. आज कुनै कारणले पाहुना बढी आइदियो भने 5 डिपोजिट गरिदिउँला. कुनै दिन गाईले कम दिदियो भने 3 डिपोजिट गरिदिउँला. But there's no target based, there's no there's no competitive scenario there. Subsistence.
Yes.
So subsistence level ma जाने हो भने होइन. आज if he was part of a dairy of that gaupalika, and if they had planned 2000, then there will be a concern not only to him but to 5 more people who say तिम्रो गाईको प्रोडक्सन घट्या चाहिँ के भएको होला होइन. तिमीले घरमा खपत गर्यो भने त्यो नगर न यार, कमसेकम buy it back, but let the factory run completely.
This reminds me, तपाईँले भने डेरीको इक्जाम्पल दिएर अमुलको याद आउँछ कि मलाई.
That was a movement.
It's a movement. Social mission छ, तर they are so focused on improving the productivity of the dairy entrepreneurs, होइन.
No, I'm in love with this dairy sector because I see a huge opportunity. Nepal has about 30 lakh heads, cow, buffalo put together, milking animal heads. 30 lakh heads. मैले feed sector कै कुरा गर्ने हो भने if it was a very hybrid kind of breed, it could give up to 40 liters per day. And our national average is at 2 liters per day.
Oh, goodness.
Right? Could be 2.5. I might be wrong with my statistics recent.
Yeah.
But 2.5. So the gap is so huge, immense that, see, of course, the current cow may not be able to give you 60 or 40 liters. But then it is an evolving process, right? Breed ल्याउन सकिन्छ, change हुँदै जान्छ, हैन? So now imagine, but to run that, see, these are indigenous cows or crossbred cows, which are hardy cows. Okay? तिनीहरू 3-4 लिटर जसरी पनि दिन्छ. You don't need very high nutrition. But if the moment you get it a New Jersey or something of that sort, it needs care. It needs real
मेहनत चाहियो त्यहाँ.
मेहनत चाहियो, हैन? But it will give you 40 liters plus. What do you want to do? The choice is that. The effort is the same, or maybe 10% more.
So भनेपछि अब यो ग्रामीण नेपालको कुरा गर्दाखेरि गभर्नमेन्टको इन्गेजमेन्ट हुँदाखेरि त्यहाँको उद्यमीहरूको मात्रै सबसिस्टेन्स माइन्डसेट हुन कि गभर्नमेन्ट पनि त्यो सबसिस्टेन्स माइन्डसेटबाट ग्रोथतिर जानु पर्यो भन्ने जस्तो लाग्यो.
किनभने म त के भन्छु भने कहिलेकाहीँ कस्तो लाग्छ भने हामीका बिचमा पोलिटिकल अपहिवल वी हैव सीन इन द लास्ट 6-7 years एभ्री नाउ एन्ड देन गभर्नमेन्ट छ कि छैन भन्ने पनि लाग्छ. देश त चलिरहेछ, राइट?
हजुर.
के चलिरहेछ भने व्यापार गभर्नमेन्टबाट रोकिँदैन. ठीक छ, there could be deterrence. This time also the budget has certain provisions which a lot of us don't like. But the point is, व्यापार त हुन्छ नि, खपत त हुन्छ, right? So त्यो सेरोफेरोमा बसेर हामीले आफ्नो प्रोडक्टिभिटी त बढाउनु पर्यो. So imagine a gaon outside, let's say in Lalitpur somewhere, they say we have 10,000 people living in this gaon and 10,000 भनेको 2,000 families, 2,000 families ma duita gaon गरेर we have 10,000 cows. They say, okay, our ambition in the next 2 years or 5 years is to make it 1 lakh cows and eventually हाम्रो चापा गाउँ dairy भनेर खडा गर्ने. That's a game plan. Right. Whatever comes from the government is additional. अहिले हाम्रो माइन्डसेट के छ भने गभर्नमेन्टले दियो भने गर्ने.
राइट. भनेपछि त्यो कम्युनिटी नै एन्टरप्राइजिङ बन्न पर्यो जुन
हैन. र कम्युनिटी कहिले पनि very enterprising हुन सक्दैन. But there will be few people in that community who are very enterprising.
Right.
And there would be few leaders who are sometimes enterprising by themselves or sometimes they are just leaders but not enterprising. We need to bring these two together. त्यो effort कसले गर्ने भन्ने कुरा हैन. But the guy who wants to be an entrepreneur or is already an entrepreneur, he will do that effort. उसलाई त opportunity देखाउनु पर्यो. Like I said, I didn't care which sector I was in. I cared about my time and I wanted to do something of my own.
उसले मार्केट ओरिएन्टेड हुने बित्तिकै उसले त्यो मार्केट देखेर त्यही अनुसारको उसले आफूलाई आफ्नो सिस्टमलाई मोल्ड गर्दै जान्छ भन्ने कुरा गर्नुभयो. यो कुरामा नि यो सबसिस्टेन्स माइन्डसेटकै कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ सब्सिडी आफैमा पनि एउटा यस्तो इन्स्ट्रुमेन्ट हो जसले त्यो वातावरण बनाइदिया हुनसक्छ नि होइन. सब्सिडी इन इट्सेल्फ, राइट? अनि we've heard you talk a lot about the input based subsidy versus output based subsidy हैन. So यही गाउँको केसमा चाहिँ like what would you recommend? कस्तो हुनुपर्ने थियो?
I think कहीँ न कहीँ हाम्रो कुरा यसपालिको बजेटले सुने जस्तो लाग्यो हैन. They have spoken about output based subsidy.
At least intention छ त्यहाँ.
Intention छ. त्यो सब्सिडीलाई कसरी execute गर्छ time will tell हैन. And probably what will follow is the fertilizer also हैन. हामीले एउटा कुरा के मानौ भने हामीका rhetoric के रहन्छ भने every government gives subsidy in agriculture and we compare it to India and we compare it to US and stuff like that. But they are a different government. The setup there is very different. हैन. हाम्रो आफ्नो limitations छ, हाम्रो आफ्नो positives छ. Why do we want to do a copy post? जुन यो कुरा हामी कहाँ कुनै न कुनै मेट्रिक्स होला नि कि for this much subsidy, this much grain or this much value addition has to happen. त्यो मेट्रिक्स छैन. हामी कहाँ के भइदियो भने फर्टिलाइजरकै कुरा गर्ने हो भने हरेक 3 महिनामा तपाईँहरू न्युजमा पढ्नुहुन्छ फलाना मिनिस्टर आयो बट यसपालि पनि पर्याप्त मल व्यवस्था भएन होइन एन्ड देन यु रिड अबाउट समथिङ लाइक मलको टेन्डर गरियो पर त्यो टेन्डरमा मुद्दा परेर मल आउन सकेन यस्ता यस्ता कुरा छ आर वी आई मिन वाइ आर वी स्टक इन प्रोसेसेसलाई त झन् सिम्प्लिफाई गर्नु पऱ्यो कि कम्प्लिकेटेड प्रोसेस पहिला टेन्डर गर्ने टेन्डरमा L1 L2 L3 गर्ने त्यसपछि मुद्दा लाग्ने त्यसपछि सिजनै सकिसक्यो नि त्यतिन्जेलमा द मोमेन्ट इट्स अ लेङ्दी प्रोसेस
Do you see a role for private sector in fertilizer production?
See, I don't see a possibility of production in Nepal. Let's be, I mean, apart from organic fertilizer, I don't see a possibility because we don't have the right ingredients. हामी कहिलेकाहीँ अलिकति
Raw materials नै छैन
हो हामी इलेक्ट्रिसिटीलाई बारम्बार र मटेरियल भनिरहेछौँ बट हामी कहाँ अहिले पनि इलेक्ट्रिसिटी फालाफाल भएको छैन वी आर स्टिल हामी कहाँ अहिले पनि लोड सेडिङ भइरहेछ होइन सो एन्ड इलेक्ट्रिसिटी इज नट नेसेसरली द बेस्ट र मटेरियल फर fertilizer होइन इफ यसरी हेरौँ न कि इफ आई क्यान सेल द सेम इलेक्ट्रिसिटी एट अ हायर प्राइस समवेयर एल्स देन वाइ वुड आई युज इट इन फर्टिलाइजर होइन बिजनेसको प्रिन्सिपल्स त्यही भन्छ सो म कहाँ बिजुली छ त्यस भएर म सस्तो बिजुली फर्टिलाइजर
कम्पिटेटिभ एडभान्टेज भनेको त्यो
होइन त्यो हामीलाई कहाँ छैन सो फर्टिलाइजर इज समथिङ विच इज अभाइलेबल ग्लोबली देयर इज नो डर्थ अफ फर्टिलाइजर प्रोडक्सन सर्टेज छैन हाम्रो खरिद प्रक्रियाले गरिरहेछ सो खरिद प्रक्रियालाई सिम्प्लिफाई गरौँ होइन सो वाट द बजेट हेज स्पोकन अबाउट इज लेट्स गेट इन टु द आउटपुट फर्गेट द इनपुट होइन एन्ड ओपन इट अप पहिला पनि हामी कहाँ फर्टिलाइजर वाज अन्डर ओजिएल सो इफ यू ओपन
ओजिएल भनेको ओपन गभर्नमेन्ट
ओपन जेनरल लाइसेन्स
ओपन ओके
होइन सो आज अगर फर्टिलाइजर खोलिदियो भने म पनि मगाउन सक्छु तपाईँ पनि मगाउन सक्नुहुन्छ एउटा सहकारीले पनि मगाउन सक्छ ओके
जस्ट लाइक आइएसपी
एन्ड आई क्यान सेल एट माई प्राइस
तर त्यसले किसानलाई फेरि महँगो प्राइस त पर्न जाँदैन भन्ने एउटा सोच
यु थिङ्क किसान इज द्याट स्टुपिड आजको दिनमा प्राइसेस आर अभाइलेबल
कम्पिटिसनले प्राइस त
म फ्ल्यास गर इफ यु आर सेलिङ एट अ हायर प्राइस आई विल गो टु यर कस्टमर एन्ड अफर इन माई प्रडक्ट इट्स अभाइलेबल अन नेट इफ यु सब्सक्राइब टु सर्टन वाट्सएप ग्रुप्स यु विल गेट द प्राइसेस अन अ डेली बेसिस राइट
हजुर
एन्ड फर्टिलाइजरको प्राइसमा इफ टुडेज प्राइस सब्सिडी पछि 27-28 रुपियाँ छ भने विदाउट सब्सिडी 50 रुपियाँ होला 50 रुपियाँमा 51 र 52मा केही फरक छैन राइट इट इज अ म्याटर अफ ट्रस्ट विच कम्पनी डु यु ट्रस्ट एन्ड विच कम्पनी सो वन्स द्याट फर्टिलाइजर इज फुल्ली अभाइलेबल त्यसबाट उत्पादन हुनु पऱ्यो नि र उत्पादन हुँदाखेरि अगर उत्पादनलाई गभर्मेन्टले मोनिटर गर्ने हो भने फर्टिलाइजरको समस्या त रहँदैन नि एन्ड इट विल पुट प्रेसर अन उत्पादन गर्नु पऱ्यो
Right.
So that model has to be, we have to become competitive. Right. And competitiveness-लाई encourage पनि गर्नु पर्यो र साथै साथ कहीँ न कहीँ पुश पनि गर्नु पर्यो एज इन मेक इट कम्पल्सरी होइन कम्प्लेसेन्सी एन्ड सबसिस्टेन्स गो टुगेदर
राइट
र अगर यो दुईवटा साथै रहने हो भने तपाईँले सुरुमा भनेको कुरा एग्री एन्टरप्रेन्योर्स
हुँदैन राइट कम्प्लेसेन्सी रिडन्डेन्सी अनि सबसिस्टेन्सबाट चाहिँ हामीहरू कम्पिटिटिभनेस ग्रोथ होइन इनोभेसनको डिरेक्सनमा
आजको दिनमा फार्मरलाई वी क्यान बिकज अफ ल्याक अफ इन्फर्मेसन वी क्यान ओभर चार्ज हिम द्याट्स नट हामी मोर देन 100%को मोबाइल फोन पेनिट्रेसनको कुरा गर्छौँ नेपालमा कहाँ गयो त तपाईँ हामीले 5-10-10वटा त बोक्या होइन इट इज एन्ड किसानको पनि यङ्गर जेनेरेसन इज इक्वली एक्सपोज टु अ सहरी यङ्गर जेनेरेसन
सो तपाईँले बजेट त टच गरिहाल्नुभयो वाट डु यु थिङ्क अबाउट द बजेट दिस इयर
मेरो आफ्नो धारणामा बजेट इज अ नर्मल बजेट आई वुड थिङ्क होइन नर्मल इन द सेन्स सधैँ आइरहेको रेटोरिक बजेट हो होइन कुनैमा अलिक कम गर्दै आएको छ कुनैमा
यो स्लो डाउनलाई यसले टार्गेट गरेछ
त्यही नर्मल बजेट भन्दाखेरि आजको परिस्थिति अनुसारको बजेट भएन इट इज अलमोस्ट द सेम साइज 7.5 बिलियन सरी खरब होइन र यसले न खर्च घटाएको छ आई मिन यसले अहिले के अनुमान गरेको छ
प्रशासनिक खर्च त घटाएको छ
के घट्या छ
तर इट्स Very small.
नेग्लिजिबल आई मिन गाडी निलाम गरिदिने तेलको खर्च फिक्स गरिदिने यी बाहेक त केही खर्च घट्या छैन भाइ यसो हेर्नुहोस् न कि तपाईँको एक्सपेन्स अकाउन्ट इज अलमोस्ट अबाउट 12 खरब विच वाज द सेम एज लास्ट इयर बरु चिन्ताको विषय यहाँ छ कि यसपालिको रेभेन्यू मेबी अराउन्ड 9 खरब होइन and next year ko revenue has been projected at 12.5 crore. So how will that be achieved?
Right.
So to achieve that, what has been done? That piece is missing just to like. So if you look at that resource and allocation, 17.5 bhane cha. 3 kharab chahi development budget cha, 3 point something ऋण र त्यो पेमेन्ट छ.
So म्याथमेटिक्समै समस्या भयो.
त्यो म्याथमेटिक्समा समस्या के भयो भने त्यो 12.5 जुन भने चाहिँ रेभेन्यू आउँछ त्यसको रियल रिजनिङ देखिएन. हुन अलिअलि ट्याक्सहरू बढ्या छ विच मे हेभ एफेक्टेड सम इन्डस्ट्रिज ब्याडली बट what have we done? How will this whole budget increase business? होइन टोटल बजेट भाषणमा सुन्नुभयो भने 5 मिनट पनि प्राइभेट सेक्टर या निजी क्षेत्र या व्यापार या इकोनोमीको कुरा गरेको छैन. खर्चको कुरा गरेको छ, नारा राखिया छ र साथमा यो पनि भनिएको छ कि यु नो हामी यो सेक्टरमा व्हाट यु से reforms in terms of procedural reforms ल्याउँछौँ which has been a standard format for the last 20 budgets. So त्यो भएको हुनाले this year we had the opportunity of taking 1 or 2 bold steps हो कि इकोनोमीलाई प्रोपेल गर्नको लागि.
Subsistence budget.
बजेट सब्सिस्टेन्समा जानुपर्ने थियो बट अप्रोच शुड हेभ बिन अ बिगर रिफर्मेटिभ अप्रोचमा जानुपर्ने हो. अ लिटल डिसरप्टिभ. यसपालिको डिसरप्सनमा के भनेको छ भने
what would you have wanted to see? कस्तो किसिमको डिसरप्सन?
I would have wanted to see one major cost cutting. हुन्छ नि कि
मन्त्रालयको कस्ट मजासँग काटेको हुनुपर्यो.
कमसेकम 20-30% खर्च घटाउने एम्बिसन लिनुपर्ने थियो. टफ डिसिसन.
राइट.
Very tough. It would have hurt the elections. होइन
इलेक्सन त बाँकी छन्.
बाँकी छ पर गर्नुपर्ने थियो. सेकेन्ड इकोनोमीलाई बढाउन के गर्ने त होइन. हाउ डु इन्क्रिज कन्ज्युमर स्पेन्डिङ. कन्ज्युमर स्पेन्डिङ भएपछि त्यो आउँथ्यो. कन्ज्युमर स्पेन्डिङको बारेमा केही कुरा गरिएको छैन बजेटमा. लेट्स से हामी रेमिटेन्सको कुरा गर्छौँ. रेमिटेन्सको कुरा गर्छौँ भने रेमिटेन्सलाई हामीले हाम्रो GDP को एउटा certain percentage which is growing, which is alarmingly growing. Our dependency on remittance is worrisome. Whereas, in spite of that, हाम्रो जुन फरेक्स रिजर्भ छ त्यो 9 बिलियनको हाराहारी भन्दा धेरै माथि गएको छैन. एक्सेप्ट फर कोभिड टाइम्स when it went 12.5, 13 त्यसभन्दा बाहेक गएको छैन. सो इज द्याट रङ म्याथमेटिक्स? हामी एकतिर बढेका छौँ पर हाम्रो त्यो
पैसा त बाहिर गएछ
हो. एन्ड अर्कोतिर how are you, one thing that budget is completely silent about is on what basis they have said यसपालिको 9.5 चाहिँ will become 12.5. Just tinkering of taxes will not make it 12.
Right.
In fact, that tinkering of taxes might bring down the business level, business confidence.
तपाईँले हाम्रो पास्ट बजेट्सहरू होइन अब इन्टु द पास्ट हेर्दाखेरि कहिले तपाईँले त्यो एकदम प्राइभेट सेक्टरलाई प्रमोट गर्ने हिसाबले आएको बजेट याद गर्नुभएको छ?
मलाई याद भएन बट अर्ली अन द डेज वेन भनौँ न 46 सालतिर र त्यसपछि तपाईँको यु नो आफ्टर वी बिकेम भनौँ न डेमोक्रेटिक
मिड
90s तिर पिपल से द्याट द पुश
लिबरलाइजेसनको वेभ चाहिँ राइड गरेको
जुन डाक्टर रामशरण महतले एकचोटि बजेट पेश गर्नुभएको थियो त्यसमा अलिअलि त्यो कुरा देखिएको थियो. एन्ड प्रब्ली द्याट इज द रिजल्ट वाइ द बिजनेसेस हेभ ग्रोन टु द साइज दे हेभ ग्रोन होइन. त्यसपछिको ग्रोथ त राम्रै छ नि पर यसपालिको जुन भन्छ नि एक्स्ट्रा अर्डिनरी सिचुएसन डिमान्ड्स एक्स्ट्रा अर्डिनरी एफर्ट त्यो एक्स्ट्रा अर्डिनरी सिचुएसनलाई स्वीकार्य चाहिँ छ पर एफर्ट देखिया छैन. सो फर मी इफ यु आस्क मी हाउ विल माई बिजनेस ग्रो फ्रम द बजेट आई डोन्ट नो.
राइट.
इभन तपाईँको हाफ हार्टेड अप्रोचहरू पनि देखिया छ. 90 करोड रुपियाँ छुट्याइदिया छ एक्सपोर्ट इन्सेन्टिभ भनेर. होइन. सो 90 करोड रुपियाँ 1% को इन्सेन्टिभ दिने हो भने 1% इज नट इनफ. 1% को इन्सेन्टिभ दिने हो भने वाट डज इट ट्रान्सलेट टु? अ लिटल सर्ट अफ 1 खरब रुपियाँ. 1 खरब रुपियाँको एक्सपोर्ट गरेर हामी देश धनी हुन्छ. Our plans are so small. Again, we go back to the same. What is a country? Country is like a larger representation of a company. होइन, त्यसको पनि रिसोर्स एलोकेसन सेम पिएनएल जस्तै त भन्छ. वी कल इट बजेट एन्ड वी कल इट आय व्यय विवरणै भन्छौँ. द्याट्स पिएनएल, राइट? सो त्यो हेर्दाखेरि हामी कन्ट्रीलाई कम्पनी लेभलमा सोचिरहेछौँ. यहाँ कम्पनीज वान्ट टु थिङ्क एट कन्ट्री लेभल. सो त्यो
तालमेल
मिलेको छैन.
करेक्ट.
वी हेभ नट.
सो लाइक कमिङ ब्याक टु यो बजेट अथवा गाउँमा कस्तो खालको पोलिसिज आउनु पऱ्यो होइन, यो सबै कुराहरू भनेको त एउटा प्रोसेसले डिटर्माइन गर्नुपर्ने हो नि त. एउटा प्रोसेसले हामी यहाँ छौँ, हामीलाई यो चाहिएको छ, त्यही भएर यो गर्नु पऱ्यो भन्नुपर्ने. हामीहरू चाहिँ कस्तो गरिरहेछौँ, हामी यहाँ छौँ होइन, हामी यहाँ छौँ, यो बारेमा खासै हामीले सोचेको छैनौँ, अनि इन्क्रिमेन्टल भइरहेको जस्तो लाग्छ नि त अहिले. न त यदि हामीले यहाँ पुग्नु छ भने भए त हामीले त्यो लिप लिनको लागि भनेर कस्तो इनोभेसन गर्नु पऱ्यो त्यो सोच्थ्यौँ. सो आई वान्ट कम टु दिस आइडिया अफ पोलिसी एडभोकेसी कि नेपालमा अहिले यहाँले फ्रम द प्राइभेट सेक्टर लेन्स, अल्सो फ्रम FNCCI लेन्स अब्जर्भ गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो पोलिसी बनाउने प्रक्रिया, यो बजेट निर्धारण गर्ने प्रक्रिया चाहिँ कति एभिडेन्स बेस्ड छ?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Evidence based, evidence भन्दा पनि कस्तो छ भने नजिर based
इमोसन्स,
stories नजिर what has been the practice. आज हेर्नुहोस् बजेटको format is the same for the last many years. Same तरिकाले बजेट. I mean, let's think of it this way. I don't know how practical that is to do, but यसपालि हामीले रेमिटेन्स इन्कमलाई एउटा हेडिङ मात्रै चेन्ज गरेर डिम्ड एक्सपोर्ट भनेको भए के हुन्थ्यो? द मोमेन्ट यु लुक एट डिम्ड एक्सपोर्ट, हाम्रो एक्सपोर्ट इन्कम हेज गन अप ट्रिमेन्डसली, विच एसेन्सियली मिन्स वी आर अ एक्सपोर्ट कन्ट्री, राइट? अहिले वी डोन्ट कन्सिडर आवरसेल्भ्स एज अ एक्सपोर्ट कन्ट्री. द मोमेन्ट वी कन्सिडर आवरसेल्भ्स एज एन एक्सपोर्ट, द होल अप्रोच चेन्जेस. हाम्रो बिगेस्ट अर्निङ्स आर इन डलर्स. Our biggest spending is in Indian currency. Our peg is on Indian currency, but our earnings are larger on dollars. I have no solution. I'm not giving any solution. But I'm sure there is some play there. I'm no economist to suggest any major changes, but there is a time to look at it.
Yeah.
होइन. Again, तपाईँले यसपालि पनि हेर्नुभयो होला, सानो प्रोजेक्ट्स 10औं कृषिमा पनि हरेक चिजमा दे हेभ गिभन आउट सो मेनी थिङ्स. विल द्याट मेक अ नेसन? विल द्याट इभन मेक अ विलेज? होइन. कन्ट्रडिक्सन कहाँ पनि देखियो भने एकतिर टुरिज्म बढाउने भन्छौँ, अर्कोतिर लग्जरी ट्याक्स लगाइदिएछौँ. 2%को यसपालि लग्जरी ट्याक्स लगाइदियो. सो आर वी ट्राइङ टु, वी हेभ मेड एयर ट्राभल भ्याटेबल. Is this the right time? Maybe VAT is a good concept. It is the right thing. What is the right time? So the challenge with the finance minister was, how does he meet his money requirement? And how does he get that? होइन. सायद मलाई के लाग्छ भने बजेटलाई हामीले खुम्च्याउनु पर्ने थियो. 17 होइन 12-14 मा ल्याउनु पर्ने थियो. And maybe for 1 year we should have said development हामी अफोर्ड गर्न सक्दैनौँ. We should have probably renegotiated our payback to the international lenders for a few years. And instead of charging more, we should have actually put that stimulus into the business.
Invested more.
Yeah. May not be my sector, but
any sector that makes sense.
5 sectors, not even every sector. 5 large sectors where I think business will grow.
Yeah.
होइन. अहिले ट्याक्स हेर्ने बेला होइन कि अहिले हामी पनि एज बिजनेसमेन वाट वी आर टकिङ अबाउट इज इट्स नट द टाइम टु लुक एट यर पिएनएल. इट इज द टाइम टु सर्भाइभ. एन्ड इफ यु सर्भाइभ, विच मिन्स यु हेभ टु लुक एट यर क्यास फ्लोज. आई थिङ्क द सेम एप्लाइज टु दि कन्ट्री एज वेल. त्यो अप्रोच नलिएर हामीलाई अब सायद पोलिटिकल कम्पल्सन्स होला, विच आई डोन्ट वान्ट टु कमेन्ट अपन, बट आई डोन्ट इभन नो वाट टु कमेन्ट अन द्याट. बट त्यो कुरालाई अब यसपालि त्यो गर्यो नि सांसदको
विकास निर्वाचन क्षेत्र विकास कोष
यस्ता कस्टहरू कम्प्लिटली कम गरेर वी शुड हेभ not even projected 6%. I would have said 0.
Right.
We don't want to grow.
So essentially, economy oriented
बजेट हुनुपर्ने
पर्ने थियो
किनकि अब इकोनोमी भए पो त ट्याक्स उठ्छ ट्याक्स उठेपछि रेभेन्यू हो त्यो होइन अनि अस्तिको एउटा FNCCI र IFC मिलेर एउटा रिपोर्ट पब्लिक गरेको छ विच इज 85% कन्ट्रिब्युटर इज द प्राइभेट सेक्टर टु द बिजनेस इकोनोमी
नट सरप्राइजिङ यस
होइन सो त्यो भएपछि ट्याक्स त त्यहीँबाट आउने हो
हजुर
So it's a chicken and egg situation, I mean, if you're going to slaughter the golden egg laying hen, then you know what.
Right. So I think the persistent theme that is also then coming, हाम्रो अगाडिपट्टिको कुरामा भने चाहिँ गभर्मेन्टले सोच्ने तरिकामा पनि हामीहरूले चाहिँ यहाँ पुग्नु खोजेको हाम्रो मार्केट यो हो हामी यहाँ जान चाहन्छौँ भन्ने कुरालाई सोचमा राखेर बरु त्यो क्याश फ्लो म्यानेजमेन्ट गर्नु पर्यो तर त्यो इन्भेस्टमेन्टको माइन्डसेट चाहिँ राख्नु पर्यो भन्ने हुन जस्तो
एन्ड अ लङ टर्म स्ट्राटेजी यहाँ के भइरहेको छ गभर्मेन्ट इज चेन्जिङ एभ्री फ्यु मन्थ्स सो इट्स अ भेरी सर्ट टर्म स्ट्राटेजी द पोलिसी इन दिस बजेट इज डिफ्रेन्ट द अदर वान वुड बी डिफ्रेन्ट सो त्यो गर्नु भएन इट हेज टु कम डाउन टु अ कन्सिस्टेन्सी लेभल 1 एन्ड 2 हामीले एउटा कर्पोरेट जस्तो सोच्न सक्नु पऱ्यो कि वी हेभ टु पुट आवर नम्बर्स टुगेदर एन्ड सी वाट इज रियलिस्टिक नट पुट द्याट डकुमेन्ट असाइड द डेटा एन्ड एभ्रिथिङ असाइड एन्ड से वी हेभ टु बी डिस्ट्रिब्युटिभ
हजुर तर त्यो गर्ने क्रममा अब जुन त्यो सोसियल इम्प्याक्ट इन्डिकेटर्सहरू छ त्यसलाई पनि नजरअन्दाज नगर्ने तर इकोनोमीलाई चाहिँ प्रायोरिटीमा राख्नु पऱ्यो भन्नुहुन्छ न मेरो यो अब हामी अन्तिमतिरै आइसकेका छौँ वी टक्ड अ लट अबाउट सो मेनी डिफ्रेन्ट एस्पेक्ट्स आई थिङ्क द यो श्रोताहरूले धेरै सिक्नुहुन्छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई
होपफुली यस
एउटा प्रश्न चाहिँ के छ भने मेरो अन्तिममा हामीले अहिले धेरै गभर्मेन्टको कुरा गऱ्यौँ नीतिको प्रभावकारिता कमजोर छ अहिले हामीले आज कुरा गर्ने मौका पाएनौँ त त्यो भ्रष्टाचार चरम अवस्थामा छ अहिले हामीहरू ज्वलन्त उदाहरणहरू देखिरहेछौँ सो सरकार त्यो ठाउँमा छ अनि हामीहरूले अहिले यदि ग्रासरुट्स लेभलमा भूमि तहमा जाने हो भने अघि मात्रै पनि हाम्रो शङ्कर कणेलजीको कुरा गर्दै थियौँ होइन चितवनमा उहाँले आत्महत्या गर्नुभयो अर्को हाम्रो प्रेम आचार्य होइन अर्को उद्यमी उहाँले आत्महत्या गर्नुभयो यी त मेहनत गरिरहेका मान्छेहरू हुन् नि खास अनि फेरि त्यो कस्तो भने त्यो बुद्धि नभए मान्छे पनि होइन कि बुद्धि प्रयोग गरेर उद्यम गरिरहेका मान्छेहरू हुन् तर त्यो परिवेश यस्तो बन्न गएको छ सो गभर्मेन्ट जहाँ छ त्यहाँ पनि यति धेरै प्रश्नहरू ग्रासरुट्स लेभलमा उद्यमीहरू जहाँ छन् एट त्यो स्केल हेर्ने हो भने त्यहाँ पनि यति धेरै प्रश्नहरू यहाँले यो देशको लागि आशा कहाँ देख्नु भएको छ कसरी चाहिँ यो देश अब फड्को मार्न सक्छ जस्तो लाग्छ
दुईवटा एउटा चाहिँ मलाई लाग्छ कि अहिले ग्लोबली पनि अलि स्लो डाउन छ होइन रिसेसनरी फेजमा कसैले भन्छ छिरिसकेका छौँ कसैले भन्छ वी आर येट टु गेट इन्टु द्याट सो त्यसको आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स नेपालमा देखिया छ एन्ड इच पर्सन टु देयर ओन दे हेभ देयर ओन वे टु रियाक्ट टु इट होइन सो शङ्कर कणेलजीको केसमा जे भयो या उहाँ प्रेमजीको केसमा जे भयो अनफर्चुनेट बट भयो होइन वी हेभ टु एक्सेप्ट इट बट ह्याभिङ सेड द्याट होइन हामी जुन कुराको बारेमा अहिले we have been cribbing about for a while we just flip it over and see that is where the opportunity is right यो भा छैन भन्दाखेरि यो गर्न सकिन्छ भन्ने पनि त छ नि होइन सो इफ यु आर सेइङ कि मैले नै अघि भने 30 लाख गाई छ गाई र भैँसी मिलाएर छ र 2 लिटरको दुध उत्पादन हुँदैछ 40 गर्न सकिन्छ भने 38 को ग्याप छ 19 times इट्स फिनोमिनल होइन सिमिलरली लट अफ टेक्नोलोजी अब हामी कहाँ एउटा कुरा एज अ क्लोजिङ रिमार्क अल्सो आई वुड लाइक टु एड कि हामी कहाँ जहिले पनि हालसालमा खुब पढिरहेको छ बच्चाहरू विदेश पढ्न गएर यति पैसा खर्च भयो राइट वेन आई सी दोज न्युज आई से बच्चाहरू विदेश पढ्न गएपछि यति पैसा इन्भेस्टमेन्ट भयो वाट डु हेभ फर देम The guy who went to the US or the best universities in the world, what do we have for them?
Yeah, I know.
Yes. दे हेभ द एक्सपोजर मलाई थिएन मेरो फादरलाई थिएन मेरो ग्रान्डफादरलाई थिएन बट मेरो छोरालाई त छ वाट अपर्च्युनिटी क्यान वी गिभ टु देम होइन त्यो अपर्च्युनिटी त्यसलाई अगर हामीले खर्च भयो अब विदेश पठाउन छोडिदिउँ लेट्स पुट अ सिस्टम अफ एनओसी एन्ड भोलि गएर एजुकेसन सेस र के लगाइदिएला होइन अहिले पनि छ एजुकेसन सेस छ त्यो लगाएर पैसा जोगाउने फरेक्स जोगाउने हो कि त्यो त्यो जमातलाई हामी फिर्ता बोलाएर गिभ देम एन अपर्च्युनिटी आज एउटा एभरेज सचिव स्तरमा पुगेको मान्छेको उमेर के छ राइट तपाईँ हामीको एजको मान्छे भेटिन्छ त्यहाँ बट वेन वी आर सेयिङ कि आजदेखि टुमोरो एन्ड डे आफ्टर तपाईँ हामीले हेर्नै सकेका छैनौँ भने यो जमातलाई त ल्याएर त्यहाँ राख्नु पऱ्यो नि एन्ड दे आर वेल एजुकेटेड गाइज दे हेभ सिन द वर्ल्ड प्रब्ली मेनी अफ देम हेभ वर्कड इन दि टप 500 कम्पनीज ग्लोबली तिनीहरूलाई हामीले रेस्पेक्टफुल्ली ल्याएर तिनीहरूलाई अपर्च्युनिटी दिने हो कि होइन एन्ड त्यो अपर्च्युनिटी इज नट मोनिटरी नट नेसेसरी मोनिटरी होइन उनीहरूको कुरा त सुनिदिउँ सो तपाईँले प्रोसेसको जुन कुरा बताउनु भयो आई वुड फोकस अन प्रोसेसिङ सच अनट्याप्ड पोटेन्सियल टु मेक अ डिफरेन्स टु आवर कन्ट्री हामी जहिले पनि चाइना र इन्डियाको कुरा गरेर चाइनासँग कम्पिट गर्न जान्छौँ चाइना मेक्स सो मेनी भेहिकल्स वाइ कान्ट नेपाल मेक चाइना मेक्स टेलिभिजन्स वाइ कान्ट नेपाल वी क्यानट we have a geographical disadvantage but what we have as an advantage is what is available everywhere and an average Nepali is well educated and has that global exposure for whatever reason some are not exposed because of education but because of being employed outside dunia dekha cha my experience is people who've come back from outside are more methodical in their work processes they like tap garam na. And opportunity is the fact that we are cribbing about so many things that could have been done, hasn't been done. That is the biggest opportunity. There's so much to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anandji. यहाँको कहानी सुरुदेखि अन्तिमसम्म पनि चुनौतीहरू अथाह हुन सक्छन् त्यही चुनौतीलाई हामीहरूले होइन असफल हुनु चाहिँ मेरो लागि भनेर त्यो अप्सनै होइन लागि पर्ने हो गरेर छाड्ने हो भन्ने सोच बनाइयो भने चाहिँ त्यही चुनौतीलाई अवसरको रूपबाट परिणत गरेर
बाटो निस्किन्छ
यहाँले त्यो 2 करोडबाट 60 करोड होइन त्यो वर्ष 2 करोडबाट 60 करोडको बाटो त अप्रत्याशित नसोचेको बाटो त निक्लिँदो रहेछ होइन यहाँले अहिले भन्नुभएको जस्तै त्यो 2 लिटरबाट 40 लिटर पनि निक्लिने बाटो चाहिँ निक्लन अवश्य सक्छ यहाँले जे गर्नु भएको छ यो देशको लागि र आफ्नो यो समुदायहरूको लागि देशवासीहरूको लागि त्यसको लागि धेरै धन्यवाद यति भन्दै म आजको यो पडकास्ट यहीँ सकिएको छ हामीहरू अर्को पडकास्टमा फेरि अर्को एकजना यस्तै उद्यमी यस्तै सकारात्मक सोच भएका व्यक्तिसहित आउनेछौँ धन्यवाद
नमस्कार